Another day for the unemployed. I am so blessed to just sit in my bed all day and not get let's see what we can do today. Oh wow, I've played Pixel Gun quite a long time. Let's open the game.
What the hell? Oh my god, no way, yeah.
Oh. Pixel Gun 3D. You know, that rip-off Minecraft shooter that used to be popular many years ago. Now, I'm sure many of you used to love playing this game while growing up. Unless you're me, an adult man who plays this game for 6 hours every day. Despite these wonderful fond memories which you have of the game, let's just say that Pixel Gun in 2025 is, well, it's complete ass.
So much homework, I don't even know where to start.
Shut your fucking mouth!
Like, where do I even begin? The game has absolutely garbage meta, terrible matchmaking, add copy and pasted events, forgettable balance changes, and don't get me started on the Pixel Gun 3D community. Like, honestly, what a mess. But this video is not here to bitch about what's wrong with the game. There's a lot of people who have already complained about this game online. I'm looking at you, Echo Soldier. I love you, by the way. This video is here to show you what Pixel Gun 3D could be. A game which could not only live up to its former legacy, but be among the greats in shooters like TF2 or Black Ops 3. And yes, I think this game has the potential to be that good. I might sound like a glazer, and that's probably because I am. But seriously, these lazy ass devs sit on their asses all day, and all they do is use AI to make Pixel Gun 2.
Is there pay to win in Pixel Gun 2?
No, you can get guns of any rarity just by playing matches.
The AI slop is one problem, while also remaking weapons that look so much uglier than their original designs, and then dropping the worst balance changes. I've already complained about them, but seriously, who asked for nerfing the advanced scout rifle? There was no need to reduce its ammo from 40 to 30. Like, why? Sorry, I got a little off track. Like I said, this video isn't to bitch about how shit this game is. It's here to show you how I could single-handedly fix it. And Cubic Games, if you're watching this video, fuck you.
Damn!
I'm going to be entirely honest here. I'm not making this fucking video in hopes that you will listen to me and fix your shitty ass game. In fact, I want you to fail. I'm so sick of your bullshit over the years that now I'm genuinely praying for your company's downfall. And I pray that Pixel Gun 2 flops and slaps you back in the fucking face.
Oh!
This video is only being made to show your player base what this game could be. And for the rest of the video, I will no longer be addressing the developers directly or how they've been doing a lot of shady shit behind the scenes, and will be only focusing on the actual game itself. Now, with that message out of the way, it's time to talk about Pixel Gun 3D and how me, the Greek god figure that I am mentally and also physically, can single-handedly bring this game from the clutches which is currently hanging on to becoming a full-time athletic marathoner. I don't know what the fuck that means. Here's a little intermission here. This is where I'm going to give you a bit of extra information. Here's the disclaimer. As you can tell, this video is extremely long, and I won't recommend that you would watch this whole video in one sitting. Rather, I would rather you watch it in parts. I will leave a bunch of timestamps in the description which will tell you what part of the video is what, so you can jump to different parts if you either get bored or you take a break. I'll also put them on screen right now. Another disclaimer is that some of the things I may say in the video might quickly become outdated, so keep that in mind. Now, let's jump into the first topic. Meta. Now, I know the meta, you know the meta. It's safe to say this game has some of the worst balancing I've ever seen. Like the recently added levitating fang. Like, why the actual fuck does this shit exist? Why does a weapon which one shot have super fast grapple now in the game? Like, it's just really stupid.
Stupid.
I can go on and on and on about the countless times that Pixel Gun has added broken stuff into the game. But like I said, I'm not going to be complaining. I think I've done that enough already. For this section of the video, I'm going to be going through each category one by one and talk about specific weapons and what I would change about them. This will include damage, their ammo, mobilities, etc. Now, before we proceed with that, I'll have to warn you that this deals with a lot of numbers, so feel free to skip ahead. Primaries. Weapons that always appear on the logo. The weapons which are considered to be the most people's mains. Let's go into one particular weapon first, and one which I know we are all familiar with. The ultimatum. AKA the most broken weapon I've seen in the game. Why is this shit so powerful, especially with X level modules? Like seriously, the amount of times I get fully rage bait by an ultimatum spammer who thinks they are better than me at the game because they use a shotgun's crosshair to one-shot me across the map is countless. It really tickles me the wrong way, you know. In fact, I think it's best that shotguns in general get nerfed overall. Fuck it, I'm gonna revert the shotgun rework. Now I'm assuming some of you don't know what this is, so let me explain it for you. Basically, before the shotgun rework, the damage of a shotgun relied on two things. The distance of which you shoot from, and the amount of pellets that hit the player. But now, after the rework, it now only depends on the distance, which I think is so dumb because now one pellet can do the maximum amount of damage instead of being all the pellets. So we're going to change it to how it used to be. Now all the pellets need to hit the player for them to do maximum damage, meaning that shotguns will now be aimed based and not, oh, my crosshair is just on a little bit and now I can kill them. Now, in our Pixel Guns ideal universe, the shotgun rework reverted. The nerfs on shotguns would be a lot more generous, with the ultimatum being reduced to 200 body damage, which actually isn't that much of a nerf, and then Dragoneer doing 165 body damage.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Now, before some of you dumbasses comment why I nerfed Dragoneer in the first place, relax, chill. This is only the start. Soon, you will see how everything I will say tie nicely together like string. Or, you know, some other sticky stuff we're familiar with. So, let's get started with the changes. Now, like I said before, this script was originally written in August of 2025 and revised in October 2025. That means that the script had to be revised after the global balance changes. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put the global balance changes damages in brackets and the original damage will be right next to it, not being in brackets, just so you know which one's which. I'll also state which one's the original damage and which one is the global balance change damage. Ruby Shotgun. Pretty broken in my opinion. Its base damage, which used to be 184, and in the global balance changes is 163. I would simply nerf it again and make it 145. Christmas Spirit. Currently doing only 93 damage. I would buff it up to 120. Not a lot, but still a decent buff. Space Devastator. Its body damage is currently based at 70. I would buff it up to be 105. I didn't buff it too much because I didn't want it to be too powerful with its fast fire rate, so I think its buff is fair. Secret Access Shotgun. Personally, this thing is too fast for its fire rate and does way too much damage. Its base damage is currently 138, so I'm going to be reducing it to 115. Mothing Devastator. This thing is far too powerful. Why does this shit do so much damage with its fire rate?
You stupid
No clue at all. But I'm going to be reducing it to 130. Aztec Death Whistle. Currently doing 170 base damage, which is way too high. I'm going to be reducing it to 155, which may not sound like a lot, but I'm also going to be removing its healing attribute because I just don't think a shotgun should have that. Chickaboom or Chickaboom! Currently it does 111 base damage, so I'm going to be bumping it up to 130, especially after I revert the shotgun rework. Now it should be a decent option for players. Viking. I am a huge Viking glazer, but I will be nerfing its ammo capacity from 9 to 7. But I will give it a small damage buff, so it will go from being 138 up to 145. Just ignore the bleeding. I love you, Viking. Saturn! Wait, who uses this again? Anyways, 57 base damage all the way to 80. I think it's a simple buff and give it more use. Assault Shotgun. Firstly, I'm reverting the skin that they changed it to.
Yes! 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 No! 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 Fuck! Shit!
It's just so freaking ugly. And its damage will be changed from 56 to 75. Rune Buster. I can't lie, shit's a little broken. Does 184 base damage for no reason, so I'm going to be reducing it to 140. Nacho Shotgun, also pretty broken. I'm going to be reducing its damage from 182 down to 150. Combat Candy. Currently does 101 base damage with an extra 21 in the effect. I can't lie, I'm still pissed they nerfed this in the first place and the fact that it was weak. So I'm going to be buffing it up to 130 base damage plus 25 in effect, meaning that it does 155 damage in total. Deadly Icicle. Now when this thing first came out, I think we can all agree that this shit was too OP. But I personally think that they nerfed it the wrong way. So I'm going to be fixing it. I'm going to be nerfing its damage from 150 down to 125. But I will be buffing its capacity from 6 back up to 12. Last squeak, I'm going to be nerfing its capacity from 18 to 9. And finally, the newest shotgun in the game, your fave shotgun. While this weapon does look fucking sick, it does way too much damage. So it's going to be going from 183 down to 140. That is the final shotgun change I would make to the shotguns. Now, I've only listed the ones which I think people are probably going to care about. Like, I doubt anyone really cares about me changing the Xmas Destroyer. But if I was actually running the game, then obviously I would take into account all of Pixel Gun 3D's 1200 weapons and adjust them accordingly. So, I will still be talking about all the weapons, but now as a group. Firstly, talk about automatics and miniguns. Starting with ARs and automatics, I would just make sure that I would buff all the weaker ones so their new DPS would be between 130 and 190. I would also nerf any automatic or AR that's above 220 and reduce it down. Now, again, before any of you decide to comment anything that is stupid, relax. Now, with miniguns, I would allow them to have a higher DPS than automatics. And I would also rework the minigun attribute so that the minigun delay will occur only at the start of each bullet round. And you don't have to wait for that delay every time you stop shooting the weapon. Essentially, if you started shooting a new round and then you stopped midway, if you continued, there would not be a delay. And with that, it's time to move on to the next category. Backups. Now, this section will only have very small changes, nothing too particularly game breaking. In my opinion, most backups in the game are entirely worthless, while the best ones are so genuinely cracked and overpowered that it doesn't even make sense to call them backups. Like motherfucker, some of this shit be working like snipers. Regardless, these are all the changes I would make to the backup category. Firstly, the Gilded Gaze, or whatever the fuck you call it, I don't know. They actually recently nerfed this weapon, going from 153 down to 128. And while I'm happy it's no longer a one-shot, I do think the nerf was just a little bit too much, so I'm going to be putting it back up to 143. Additionally, I think the fire rate was a little bit too high on this thing. So its fire rate's going to go from 78 to 64, and it would look something like this. I think this nerf is pretty reasonable as we don't need a second weapon like Laser Cycler. Waning Moon, currently doing 94 damage. Why was this shit nerfed in the first place? Alright, so here's a quick tangent. As for making this video, when I looked up the amount of damage that this got nerfed by, it said 8% on the wiki. But in the actual official page, it said it got buffed by 8%.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
I guess that's just poor communication for ya. And to add on to the confusion, there was another wiki page which stated an entirely different damage, so I had no idea which one was correct. Anyways, damage-wise, I'm going to be buffing up to 140. Shark Puck. Again, why was this nerfed in the first place? This thing currently does 128 damage with an extra 38 damage for bleeding. I will buff it up to 140 plus 38 damage. Now 178 may seem like a lot for one shot, but keep in mind its fire rate is pretty slow, so this wouldn't become too overpowered. I wouldn't mind this being a little bit powerful. Thunderer. Now I don't know why this thing is kind of underpowered. I'm going to be buffing it from 117 all the way up to 135. Now some of you may disagree with this next change, but motherfucker, this is my video. I do what I want. Laser Cycler. Why was this thing buffed in the first place? It was completely fine how it was, so its damage is going to go from being 104 back down to 67. I don't care what you think, shit was too broken. Also, you know how that one skin gives extra poison damage? Yup, that's going to be entirely scrapped. No more poison for you, Laser Cycler. Sparkling Horn. Again, I don't know why they nerfed Sparkling Horn. This thing currently does 119 damage. I'm going to buff it up to 125. I'm also going to be buffing its mobility from 65 back up to 75. This is weaker than Thunderer in terms of damage, but will have better mobility and also has healing. Well, teammates healing. so it would be a decent competitor. Now that I've talked about all the damages I will change to cat spam weapons, I will now also be talking about adding or removing delays for a bunch of backup weapons. Mainly removing them, so cat spam players can have more of a variety. Now, the backup section has a decent amount of options, unlike some other categories. But I still think there's a lack of variety, and because of that, it's kind of shit. So, I think adding more options would make the game more interesting. But first, let's actually add a delay. Side note, input delay is receiving delay, and output delay is giving delay. Sometimes people get those two mixed up. Hypno Hunter. I would add input delay. Like, this thing seriously needs a delay. It's completely cracked in cat spam, and its fire rate is already pretty high. So I think adding an input delay should make it more balanced overall. The Cracker Gun. I would add fixed delay, but increases damage from 86 to 100. Honestly, this backup is just really annoying when people use it for cat spam, so a fixed delay should be a good balance here. Now, let's talk about reducing some delays. Piercer, or whatever the hell it's called. I would remove its fixed delay and change it to output only. This would be very useful for tackling one of the worst things I've ever seen in this game. Shield users. The Godfather's Assist. I would remove its fixed delay and change it to input and output. And side note, this weapon looks and sounds badass. I mean, look at it. Blacklight Pistol, input and output. Honestly, this weapon is really held back by having a fixed delay. So removing its delay wouldn't make it extremely overpowered, since its base damage is only like 120. Snow Blaster, remove its fixed delay and change to input and output delay. This thing does no headshot damage at all, but because it does 138 base damage, some may opt to use it over other cat spam backups as it has area damage and still does a decent amount of damage body shot wise. Royal Revolver. I would give this thing no delay. And also I would increase its damage from 68 to 76. This is so this weapon would be a competitor against a laser cycler, with the advantage of doing more damage but not having the ricochet attribute. And that is the final weapon which I would change its delay mechanics. Now, all the other backups which I have not mentioned, I would give almost all of them buffs between 5 and 40%, excluding any backup which is a shotgun. I think the shotgun rework is enough to balance them out, so fuck you Rebel. No buff for you. The higher percentage buffs will go to backups which are more automatic, while smaller buffs will go to weapons which already do a lot of damage but have slower fire rates. This will help me achieve my desire for the backup category, which is to act like a group of weapons which are good for finishing off players. I would probably remove most fixed delays from a lot of automatic style backups so that they would be more better off for quickly finishing off opponents in a battle. And with that, it's time to move on to the next category. The melee category. Now, for the most part, I think melees are pretty balanced, with the exception of dash weapons, which I will nerf to oblivion. Anyways, I would give small mobility adjustments to make them at least 85, with some 85s being reduced to like 65 and maybe even lower. These are the melees I would change in the mobility department. Double cashback. 95 to actual 100. That's right guys, when you finally unlock this weapon, you will get actual 100. No clickbait, touchdown gauntlet. In the global balance changes, this is 65 and originally was 75. But personally, I think this should get nerfed again and be reduced to 55. The second life vacuum. I would reduce his mobility from 85 to 75. Armored Cubert Power. I can't lie, this is already good because of the barrier, but I think it having 85 mobility was a little bit too much, so I'm going to be putting it back down to 75. Goo Substance Sink? I'm going to be buffing its mobility from 65 to 85. Like, I can't lie, this shit needs the speed. It's kind of ass without it. Bug Capture Net. Similar to the second life vacuum, I'm going to be reducing it from 85 to 65. Triple Bite. I'm going to be buffing its mobility from 75 to 85. I actually didn't mind when this was meta. It wasn't the most annoying thing to face off. So for that reason alone, it's going to go back up to 85. Welcome back, homie. Tactical Knife. I would remove its fixed delay. This weapon never needed a fixed delay, nor did anyone even ask for it, so just remove it. Now moving on to a particular style of melees, it is the ones with the dash. Now in my opinion, I think that most dash melees are hit or miss. They're either extremely overpowered or they're absolute dog shit. And I think this was mainly caused by the dash rework, where it was changed so you now had to hold for the entire time for the dash to take place. So I'm going to be reverting the dash rework. So now the dash will work no matter how long you're charging it for. And of course, the longer you hold, the better the dash will be. And I would also increase the full charge time on some weapons like Thermal Sync and decrease the charge time of other weapons, such as this weird Silver Clan looking weapon. I can't pronounce his name, I'm sorry. And the Med Surgery module. Honestly, the risk of holding down the weapon and then getting a slight speed boost, which is only a little bit faster than a 100 mobility melee, just isn't worth it for me. It just doesn't make sense to really use it if it's this slow. So I'm decreasing the time. Not by much though, considering that both of these melees do a lot of damage. And with that, it's time to move on to the special category. The special category. Now, this is going to be a section which is probably going to be very controversial for this video. But, like I said, this is my fucking video, so I do what I think is best. Now, to start, cat spam specials. There really is not many options. Like, this is a way more apparent problem for specials than backups. Like, I'm pretty sure there's only 4 no delay cat spam specials. And there are some other ones, but they have fixed delay, and they kinda suck. However, to solve that problem, I would just simply remove delays from more weapons. Also, while I did say fixed delay weapons aren't the best, some of them are actually very, very good, and I think they would actually get nerfed from having input and output delay rather than fixed delay. And this is because a fixed delay typically is very short and doesn't give output delay to other weapons, meaning that cat spamming with a fixed delay weapon might be easier than some input and output delay weapons, particularly in the special category, as that's considered to be the middle category when you cat spam. So essentially, by giving the weapon input and output delay, it will now also give weapons delay, like snipers and backups, unlike before where a fixed delay can't do that. And also, it will just add more variety to cat spam. So these are my changes. Firstly, Cyber Lantern, change from fixed delay to input and output delay. Like I said earlier, this is kind of a nerf. Now you have no delay if you use it with the right weapons, but now most weapons will be unusable with this thing, as it will now give delays to those weapons. As long as you use weapons that have no delay, then this is actually a buff. The next weapon, which will be changing from fixed delay to input and output delay, is the Terramorphing Stone. Similar story to Cyber Lantern. I don't think I need to explain myself here. This thing does a lot of damage. Next is Shockerizer, going from fixed delay to no delay. Having this as a cat spam weapon would be a very interesting choice, since it doesn't do as much damage as Laser Bouncer or Reflector, but it does have that shock attribute, so it might be a decent choice. Alien Bouncer 2, let's change it to no delay. Genuinely, this thing would be so good if it had no delay, and its fixed delay is so depressingly long. I think giving it no delay would make it a very good option among cat spam specials. Good Code, going from fixed delay to no delay. Who the fuck uses this? Like, nobody. So giving it no delay would be very good. I was so disappointed when this first came out and I thought this would have no delay, and when I got it and I found out it had fixed delay, genuinely I cried. But yeah, giving this no delay would make it a decent option, as it has a fast fire rate and its damage isn't too high, so it wouldn't be too overpowered. Now this one might be a bit controversial. I'm sure half of the people would love this change and the other half might hate it. But Laser Bouncer and Reflector, I would just change those to no delay too. Laser Bouncer did recently get buffed, so it would be able to one-shot. But this is only at Mythical, and because of its low capacity and fire rate, I think it wouldn't be too broken. And the Evil Rubik's Cube, must I really say more? This thing needs no delay. It's just kinda ass with a fixed delay. Now this next option is pretty interesting. The Supernova Generator. I can't lie, in my opinion, this is actually a very good cat spam weapon which nobody uses. And I think even with its fixed delay, it's just a little bit too good. So to kind of nerf it slash buff it, I'm going to be changing it to input and output delay. This thing will still be pretty good as it does a lot of damage, but it's super hard to aim with. Trust me guys, if you haven't used Supernova Generator for 3-cat spam, you're missing out. This thing is very good. And finally, the last delays I would change is the Transform Blaster, from fixed delay to no delay. Now I'm going to be talking about the damages and other attributes. Now, the special category as a whole is very similar to the current state of the backup category, meaning that some weapons are absolutely cracked or just complete ass. Now, these are the weapons which I would balance. Some of the cat spam weapons will be mentioned here. Cyber Cat Lantern. It would go from 124 down to 100. Personally, I don't think they should have buffed this beyond 100, considering its large area damage, so I think 100 is fine. Cyber Lantern, I'm going to be nerfing its damage from 162 to 150. I'm also going to be reverting its area damage buff, which it got a couple years ago, because personally I think it's just too big. Terramorphing Stone, I would only nerf its damage slightly. It should be one-shotting, but its damage is a little bit too high. So I'm going to be reducing its damage from 190 to 175.
Also, I think this thing having 75 mobility is just a little bit stupid.
I mean, you're literally holding a stone with metal hands. Surely it would be heavier. .75 mobility to 40. I know it's a bit slow, but it makes sense. Poison darts. Now, what they did to the global balance changes was kind of stupid. Originally, this thing did only 86 base damage plus an extra 26 in effect, but then they changed it to do the same base damage, but also 174 in poison damage. Yeah, that's just kind of stupid. It's just a really silly buff. So I'm going to be changing it to 100 base damage and 32 in poison. If you upgrade it up to mythical, then it would become a one-shot, which I think is fair. Next, we have the Portable Death Moon, a very OG weapon. I would be buffing its damage from 58 to 75. Necklace of the Ice King. Now, originally, I actually didn't have this in my changes at all, but after the global balance changes, Enrique! Felt like I had to save something. They should have left this weapon alone. So I'm going to be reverting its damage buff
From 137 back down to 115 at Legendary.
and I'm also going to be reverting its area damage change. Now it's just too large. Before I talk about the rest of the changes I'm going to make, I need to talk about pulling towards target weapons. Now, what do I think about these? Yeah, I'm not a good actor. But for real, in my opinion, these are single-handedly the weapons that completely destroyed the game's meta in the first place. Especially since you were able to combo this thing with Ultimatum or Deadly Beat. Genuinely, it's so easy to learn this playstyle, and anyone who competes against it is at a massive disadvantage. And beating this playstyle is not easy. Like, fucking hell, man. Like, the amount of times I've seen a player use a grapple and they're so high in the sky that the game won't even let me hit them. Because for some reason, the game, like, only lets you look up at, like, a certain angle. You can't look directly up. So they can shoot you, but you can't shoot them. It's just really dumb. I mean, you can look directly up in Minecraft, so I don't know why this is a thing in Pixel Gun 3D. So, to solve this problem, I think that the pulling towards target attribute needs an entire rework as a whole. So, what would I change? Simply put, I'll be doing 4 things: adding fixed delay / output delays, reducing the height boost you get when shooting it, reducing the speed you get when you shoot it, and reducing the max range it will take a grapple to propel you. First change is pretty simple, just adding fixed delay and output delay to every single grapple weapon if it doesn't have it already. So for example, if you had the vertical grip device and then you switched to the ultimatum, you would receive an input delay. This is so that players don't instantly switch to an OP weapon after they use their grapple and they're literally flying in the sky. Next, I'm going to be reducing the height boost. So, when you now shoot a grapple, you will no longer be propelled as high as you used to. We all know that when using a grapple, you get propelled ridiculously high up. So to fix that, I would just reduce the height boost. Reducing the speed. So this is pretty simple. When you shoot a grapple, you tend to get propelled in that direction at a certain speed. I would just make it so you don't go as fast. This is so if a player tries to aim at a grapple player, they'll have a much easier time as they're not going as fast. And finally, reducing the range that you get propelled at. I would make sure it's nowhere near as far as it is now, so you're not able to prepare yourself once and then do it again while you're mid-air. Now, with this attribute effectively reworked, these are the changes I would make to the weapons themselves. Firstly, Gift Sealer. I would decrease damage from 142 to 100. I would decrease its capacity from 3 to 2. I would also decrease its fire rate from 78 to 60, which would roughly look like this. And its mobility would go down from 75 to 65. Next, we have Vertical Grip Device. I would be changing its damage from 158 plus 48 in bleeding to 89 damage with 24 bleeding. I would reduce its fire rate from 89 all the way down to 46. And again, this is what it would look like. And its mobility from 50 to 40. Comparing these two weapons, Gift Sealer would have a shorter fixed delay, would do more base damage, and would have a faster fire rate, along with a much higher mobility. But Vertical Grip Device would do more damage overall and have more capacity. In my opinion, even if you ignore every other grapple, these two grapples alone are single-handedly ruining these games' meta. And if I was to actually ever own this game one day, this would be the very first thing I would change. Moving on to the final weapons in the special category, Good Code, along with his delay being removed, I would buff his damage up from 62 up to 85. I think this would make it a fairly popular choice when it comes to using it as spamming, as it's really good for finishing off players with fast fire rate and also the fact that it has ricochet. Wave Pulsar, currently doing 160 damage plus 58, I would reduce it to 150 with no added poison. I would also reduce its fire rate from 74 to 64.
Here's what that looks like.
And since it can go through walls and its hitbox is fairly large, the damage seems reasonable here.
And like I said with Laser Cycler, using a skin should not give you additional damage, and should purely remain cosmetic.
Alligator, I would be buffing his damage from 39 up to 75. This would be a nice beginner cat spam choice, and I would add this to the Armory to be sold for a good price of being around 200 to 300 coins. Now I'm going to be talking about flamethrowers as a group. I would be giving them all around a 10 to 30% range increase and damage increase with the exception of Snowstorm, which I think should be nerfed. And mainly its gravitational effect is a little too much, and also the fact that it can go through walls. Its damage output is fine. And also I'm going to be reverting its skin. Like seriously, its new skin is so fucking ugly.
Brother,
And finally, Stream Beam weapons. I would reduce some of the higher end ones to be around 210 and buffing all the lower tier ones to be around 140 at the minimum. Basically meaning that Stream Beam weapons will have their DPS between 140 and 210.
And with that, it's time to finally move on to the sniper section.
Snipers. Now, a lot of snipers are pretty good for how they are. And for most of Pixel Gun's history, they have been very good as a category, but not overwhelmingly powerful. And I think that's fine, since they are the hardest to aim with in the entire game, and usually have the most drawbacks. But recently, that's kind of changed. With the new snipers which came into the game, they're able to one-shot without mods, which is, you know, kind of a problem, as it means that grinding up to get the best armor in the game is kind of useless now. So to fix that issue, these are all the sniper changes, with the goal of making sure that most snipers can one headshot a player and two body shots.
I'm also going to be changing something that a lot of people might not expect. Shooting animations. A couple years back in the 21.5 update, the developers changed a lot of sniper animations, and looking back,
The changes, they kind of suck. Some weapons like Anticheat and Prototype got some new kick-ass animations and look sick.
although they did leave Prototype S alone for some reason. Bruh, tell me you're lazy without telling me you're lazy.
Anyways, others like Morgana or Project Marlin were underwhelmingly bad, and they kind of ruined the performance of the sniper since they don't feel as smooth to shoot with. So simply put, I would revert some of the animation changes. Anti-hero rifle. Currently it does 124 damage, I'm going to be buffing it up to 137. Laser crossbow, I'm going to be removing its input delay. It originally had no delay, but then they added delays to it, so I'm just going to remove its input delay. Alien sniper rifle. I'm going to be buffing its damage from 103 up to 130. Prototype. Originally doing 108 damage and now does 115 damage in the global balance changes. I'll be buffing it up to 118. Proud Eagle, I'm going to be buffing its capacity from 8 to 14. Personally, I don't like what they did to this weapon when they nerfed its capacity. And the same thing could be said for Mammoth. I'm going to be buffing its capacity from 8 all the way back up to 16. But I will be reducing its damage from 158 plus 48 bleeding to 145 plus 45. This would make the weapon more unique, as it would be considered to be a higher end capacity sniper because most snipers don't have that much ammo per round, and also because it does a good amount of damage, it would be a fairly popular choice among snipers. And it wouldn't be too broken as it's held back by its slow fire rate and its slow mobility. Morgana. I'm going to be reverting his animation back to his pre-2021 animation. I'm also going to be buffing his damage from 154 up to 169. This weapon should be pretty powerful as it's a fairly rare clan weapon. Demon Catcher. Currently doing 154 plus 49 damage. I'm going to be buffing it up to 165 plus 49 damage. I am also going to be increasing its projectile speed by 50%. Honestly, while it doesn't sound like it, this thing is very underpowered. Its rocket speed is very slow, and hitting with this thing is not easy.
I mean, it's good for killing monsters, but that's kind of it.
Underwater Carbine. I'm going to be buffing its damage from 140 up to 149. Pool of Sirens. I'm going to be buffing its damage up from 130 all the way back up to 152. Project Marlin. I'm just going to be reverting his animation. Honestly, the animation isn't too bad, I just prefer the old one. Conductor of Souls. I'm going to be reverting his animation back to his pre-2021 animation. I'm also going to be buffing his damage from 155 to 164. Activity Neutralizer. I'm going to be buffing its damage from 143 back up to 152, just like it was when it first came out. Laser Ninja. I'm going to be nerfing its damage from 150 to 140. Like, honestly, this weapon shouldn't be one-shotting. It has invisibility, for goodness sake. Huggin. I'm going to be reducing his damage from 150 to 135. This is because it's pretty easy to hit with and should not be one-shotting. Plus, it gives you the stun and chain damage. Drilling Railgun. I'm going to be buffing his damage from 173 up to 189. Honestly, if any sniper should be doing a lot more damage than it should be this one. It's basically going to be the ultimatum of the sniper category. Aerosol Rifle. I'm going to be buffing his damage from 143 up to 152. Innocent Sniper Rifle. I'm going to be buffing his damage from 143 up to 152. In my opinion, nerfing his damage was not very necessary as no one was really complaining about it, but I left it at 152 instead of his old damage at 157, as going any higher might make it a bit of an issue here. Black Hole. I'm going to be buffing his damage from 142 up to 150, although I do think in the balance change it now does 152, so I guess they kind of did that change already. Also, for Black Hole, I'm going to be giving its ability to rocket jump again. Giving its rocket jump ability back makes it pretty unique among the sniper categories and would probably make it a very popular choice. Cuba Railgun. I'm going to be buffing its damage from 142 up to 155. Clockwork Guardian. I'm going to be buffing its damage from 143 up to 175. This thing has fixed delay and its fire rate is very slow, so nerfing it in the first place never made sense for me. I think 175 should be a very good damage. Underwater Piercer. I'm going to be buffing his damage from 143 up to 149. Gears of Death. I'm going to be buffing his damage from 164 up to 169. Soul Angler. I'm going to be nerfing his damage from 164 down to 155. Gojo's Raft. I'm going to be nerfing its damage from 185 down to 150. Famer. Originally did 240 damage and now does 196 in the balance changes. I'm going to be nerfing it down even further to 165. The Great Defender. Originally doing 261 damage and now does 201 damage after the global balance changes. I'm going to be nerfing it again down to 155. Soul's Surgeon. I'm going to be reducing his damage from 230 down to 170. This is a Ruby clan weapon, so I think leaving his damage quite high is still very fair. Desert Verdict. I'm going to be reducing his damage from 214 down to 150. Space Rifle. I'm going to be buffing his damage from 87 up to 110. Now this is going to be a very interesting change. One shot. Originally doing 170 damage and now does 181 in the global balance changes. I would be buffing it up again all the way up to 260 damage. But I will be reverting the buff it was given in the global balance changes, reducing its capacity from 5 back down to 4. Sniper Exoskeleton. I'm going to be buffing its damage from 133 all the way up to 149. Snap Attacker. I'm going to be giving it a slight damage buff being from 143 up to 150. Antivirus. I'm going to be buffing his damage from 109 up to 130. Ultra Beam. No, not the winner's one. I'm going to be buffing his damage from 117 up to 155. Succubus. I'm going to be buffing his damage from 103 to 120. Anti-Champion Rifle. Similar to Necklace of the Ice King, they should have just left this alone in the global balance changes, so I am going to nerf it from 196 back down to 169. And the final change, which I will be making to the sniper category, Proton Rifle. I'm going to be changing it to output only. Now, as you can probably see, I made sure to nerf everything which I felt like was one-shotting pretty dumbfoundingly, while also simultaneously buffing a lot of weaker snipers. I also made one shot actually one shot. I don't think will make this weapon insanely broken, as it's held back by basically everything else about it. And with that being said, it's time to finally move on to the final category. And now we move on to the heavy category. Now, I think that in 2021 and in late 2020, if you ignore the solar flare, that shit was fucking so brick when it came out. Pixelgun actually had a good amount of heavies that were actually made to be pretty balanced. Now, this was a huge W, considering that they were pretty broken before, especially the weapons with the cluster bomb attribute. I'm looking at you, Christmas Ultimatum. However, with the rebuff of many of these heavies and the introduction of grapple weapons, I think this issue has become far worse than it has before. But since I did already nerf grapple weapons, I will go a little bit lighter on the nerfs than otherwise. Now, let's get into the changes. Firstly, Signal Pistol, or the default pistol. I'm going to be buffing its damage from 124 to 150. Fireworks, I'm going to be doubling its damage from 44 up to 88. Anti-Gravity Blaster, I'm going to be reverting its animation back to its old one and removing its fixed delay. Rocket Crossbow, I'm going to be buffing its damage from 79 to 92. Rocket Launcher, I'm going to be nerfing its damage from 329 down to 200. So yes, this can still one-shot with mods, but its damage reduction means it won't one-shot as easily, since its lethal radius will be much smaller. Renegade, I'm going to be buffing its damage from 102 up to 120. Missile Thrower, I'm going to be buffing its damage from 86 to 135. Wizard Wand, I'm going to be buffing its damage from 63 all the way up to 100. Earth Spike Spell, I'm going to be buffing its damage from 107 up to 125. In my opinion, this is very slept on, and I think its damage buff should help with his limitations. Soda Launcher, I'm going to be buffing its damage from 74 up to 100. Firestorm, I'm going to be buffing its damage from 70 to 110. Cursed Staff, I'm going to be buffing its damage from 69 to 120. I mean, you can't rocket jump of it. Alien Shuriken Thrower, I'm going to be buffing its damage from 85 up to 115. Proton Freezer, currently doing 162 base damage. I'm going to be nerfing it down to 124. Buffing this thing was a terrible idea. It being a 2-shot weapon is a lot more fair, as it has a very fast fire rate and its area damage is still pretty big. Invincible Lion, I'm going to be nerfing its damage from 164 down to 145. Again, this should not be one-shotting, as it makes the Super Punch attribute kind of useless, and also has the same situation with the Proton Freezer, with its fire rate being way too high. Total Planner, I'm going to be nerfing its damage from 200 to 150. The PGA 06 TV, I'm going to be nerfing its damage from 153 all the way down to 89. This thing used to be very annoying when you came across it, so halving its damage should make it easier to counter its users, although no one really uses this thing anymore. Bomber's Cat, I'm going to be reducing its damage from 144 down to 124. Ink Spreader, I'm going to be reducing its damage from 151 down to 135. Although this heavy isn't really used that much, it's actually very broken, especially with its blind effect and fast fire rate, so nerfing it makes sense. Howl of the Mummy, I'm going to reduce its damage from 169 down to 110. This thing desperately needs a nerf, as it already has weakening and instant travel time. Being able to one-shot is really dumb, especially with that area damage. It's so big. Event Horizon, I'm going to be nerfing its damage from 234 down to 165, but I will be buffing its capacity from 2 to 5. Harsh Dragon, currently doing 147 damage. I'll be nerfing it to 120. Arctic Souls Devourer, I'm going to be nerfing its damage from 143 down to 125. Corrupted Destruction System, currently doing 189 damage plus 56 in bleeding. I'm going to be reducing it down to 120 base damage and 36 damage in bleeding. Again, why does this do so much damage? At least its burning gives it more appeal compared to its competitors. Speaking of which, Destruction System, currently doing 161 damage plus 57 burning damage after global balance changes. I'm going to be reducing it back down to 141, and there will be no burning effect. This should not be one-shotting, as its area damage is huge, but it will do more damage than its corrupted counterpart, so at least it'll be appealing in some way. Pixel Games, they really did some weird stuff with this weapon. It used to do 246 damage plus 63 in its effect, but got nerfed to 199 damage, but now does 100 in effects. Whatever, I'm going to be nerfing it down to 110 damage plus 63 in its effect. It's a fairly rare weapon, so I think making it decent shouldn't be too bad. Bazooka, not very used, but I'm going to be nerfing its damage from 189 down to 145. King's Last Word, again, similar to the PGA TV. I'm going to be nerfing its damage from 205 down to 75. It is a very broken clan weapon, so I'm very happy to nerf it. Hippo, I'm going to be buffing his DPS from 66 to 102. Rocket Jumper, I'm going to be buffing his damage from 73 to 125. Hurricane, I'm going to be nerfing its damage from 140 down to 125. Ghost Launcher, I'm going to be buffing its damage from 97 to 110. Rocket Hands, I'm going to nerf its damage from 157 down to 144. And Corn Launcher, which I'm going to be buffing its damage from 151 up to 195. And last but not least, as of me making this video, a new most annoying weapon has came out, known as the Levitating Fang. This thing sucks, and it's even worse than Gift Stealer or Vertical Grip Device. So, I'm going to be nerfing its damage from 307 base damage plus 92 damage down to just 60 damage and 35 in effect. And then I'm going to be nerfing its fire rate from 78 to 69. Still pretty fast though.
Now that I've talked about all the weapons that I've wanted to talk about, it's time to move on to the next section. Weapon attributes. This section is dedicated to weapon attributes and status effects which really don't have their own category of weapon, and rather, this effect can be found in every category. Now, what effects should I rework? Most of them, apart from the ones which I mentioned earlier, are fine. They're not too broken or too trash. But here are my changes. Firstly, charm and weakening weapons. I would just call them both charm for this section. They are basically the same thing. Now, how would I rework this effect? Simple. Currently, all charm weapons have the same amount of length of the effect, and while their strength is varied, for some reason weapons that have higher DPS have higher effects of charm, while weapons with lower DPS have lower effects of charm. Now, the way to fix this is very simple. Weapons which have higher fire rates will have their effect strength reduced from 50 to around 20, with the effect being around half a second, or maybe even less. Those with medium fire rates will have their effects toned down to around 25, and the length being between 1 and 3 seconds. This can include weapons such as the Gilded Gaze or the Waning Moon. And weapons which have the slowest fire rate, which may include weapons like the Innocent Sniper Rifle, they will have their effect to be around 40%, nothing above, with the effect length of being between 3 and 7 seconds. This is me just switching things around. I'm not really nerfing the effect itself. It's still going to work the exact same and will be effective against players that can do high damage per second. But I'm also ensuring that it's not completely broken to the point where the other player becomes completely screwed if they get hit by one bullet with this charm effect. Wall break attribute. Now, in my opinion, wall break weapons should only have a 25% reduction and not a 50% reduction when shooting someone through a wall. This is a very simple change and will allow wall break weapons to have a better chance of being useful without having to buff their base damage. Ricochet! Yeah, this attribute doesn't really make any sense. Now, it kind of makes sense if you hit a ricochet shot and it hits someone in the head, it would do headshot damage. But why in the fuck is there an extra 100% damage buff when you hit someone with ricochet? Honestly, the nerf is very simple. Just remove the damage buff. I think it's a fair change, as I'm sure many of us are sick and tired of ricochet spam and pool party. Heal while reloading. I'm going to be reducing all healing weapons to be only around 50% of armor and health per reload. Additionally, I would make sure that the player needs to actually shoot one whole round for the healing attribute to actually work. So if you had the normal porcelain, having 10 shots per round, you would need to shoot all 10 shots before you're able to heal yourself. I'll allow you to reload once from the first shot and get the effect. After that though, you're going to have to shoot the entire round for you to get that effect again. Also, I would make sure that the healing effect takes place after the weapon's been reloaded and not during, just so that players don't stop reloading once they've been healed. Shield weapons. Yeah, this shit's kind of fucking annoying. These include weapons such as Sly Wolf and the Christmas Heavy. Now, how to fix this? Simple. Make it so that now all wall break weapons can penetrate the shield. But to keep it balanced, the damage reduction when shooting through a shield will now be 50%, just like it used to be when you were able to shoot through walls. This is to make sure wall break weapons aren't too powerful and still make sure that attributes like the shield penetrative ability still has its use, as it will still do the full damage. Now, shields won't be absolutely broken when used in duels. And with that was the final attribute which I would change. So now we're moving on to gadgets and pets. Pets and gadgets. I've merged this into one section as they both do the exact same thing, in which they help the player out in one way or another. But starting off with pets. Now, Pixel Gun has a lot of pets, so going through all of them would be very time consuming. Mate, I've already spent 45 minutes on fucking weapons. I'm not gonna do that shit with pets. I would simply buff all their health by around 25 to 75% at max level. I would also just entirely rework their leveling system. Instead of their max level being 65 like the player, I would only make it so it would be level 10. And of course, a level 10 max pet will do the same damage as a current level 65 max pet. Plus, the additional health buff, which I previously stated. Now, within this new system, I would obviously need to change up the training points needed to level up, with the goal of making it easier. These are the levels which I will do for each one. Level 1 will cost 0 because that's the first level. It will be free, and its effectiveness compared to 100 will be 50%. The rest of them should now be appearing on your screen. The first part is the level of the actual pet, the amount of parts it will take to upgrade to the next level, the cost of the pet to upgrade, and the total effectiveness compared to its max level. So for example, at level 4 it will do 65% of the damage it does at level 10. And 65% of his health. And the last thing I would change for pets is that I would scrap the rarity tier system entirely. The same tier that we have for weapons. It doesn't really seem necessary, and rather I would put in place classes such as a bird class or a mammal class.
Actually, birds are mammals.
And you would have to open certain eggs to unlock parts from those certain classes. No class will be rarer than the other, and won't have any other function outside of deciding which pets are in which eggs. Now, let's talk about gadgets. For the most part, while some of them are broken or a little underpowered, they aren't a huge issue. So I'll be buffing the ones which are weaker, and the ones that are more powerful I'll leave alone for the most part. But before I talk about that, I want to talk about their leveling system. It's shit! So I'm going to revert it back to how it was before, being only star based, only requiring 3 upgrades max for it to be fully upgraded. All the damages, cooldown, and other changes will be representing their maximum effectiveness. Flash Grenade. Reduce the detonation time by half. It shouldn't be so slow since it's a sneak attack gadget. The Frag Grenade. Increase area damage and its base damage by 50%. It should be one-shotting at max level. The Molotov Cocktail currently does 100 damage plus 47 in burning. I'm going to be buffing it to 120 damage plus 124 fire damage. This is pretty fair since it's not a weapon. It's a whole gadget, plus it has the area of effects, so it'd actually make it a fairly good gadget for a beginner. Sticky Candy. I'll just be fixing the bug where the candy is still invisible. I don't know if this is still in the game today, but if it is, I'm going to make sure to fix it as quickly as possible. Deadly Tamagotchi. I would buff its damage from 81 to 150 and its duration from 20 to 30. Dragon's Whistle. Currently doing 66 damage plus 22 in burning. Oh, how this gadget has fallen from grace. I remember when this shit used to be absolutely spammed in lobbies. And I kinda miss that, so I'm gonna rebuff it up to 100 base damage plus 94 fire damage. Hypno Frog. I'm going to be buffing his damage from 30 to 90. Phoenix Blood. I'll be buffing his base damage from 100 to 163. Firecracker. I'll be buffing its damage from 35 all the way up to 75. Leader's Drum. Currently giving you a 24% damage buff. I would actually increase this all the way up to 40. Robot Samurai. A classic. Currently, its duration is 23 seconds. I would increase it up to 30. Its cooldown is 59 seconds. I would reduce that down to 45. And finally, I would increase its fire rate, or rather its swinging rate, by 35%. Demon's Stone. I would increase its base health from 400 all the way up to 600. I would increase its duration from 23 seconds to 30 seconds. And I would reduce its cooldown from 59 to 50. Hopefully, both of these gadgets will become very useful to use even at maximum level lobbies. The Voodoo Snowman. I would increase its duration from 21 seconds all the way up to 30 seconds. I would also increase its cooldown just so it's not too powerful, from 25 seconds to 35 seconds. And finally, I would increase its damage effectiveness from 50% of the damage to 80%. This would make it much more tactical to use in duels, for example. It would be pretty good to use. Stealth Bracelet. This change isn't really to do with the gadget itself, but I would make sure that it's easier to see the invisible particles. It's really hard to hit a player when they're invisible, so I would make sure it's easier to hit them. Royal Guardian. I would decrease its duration from 20 seconds to 10 seconds. This gadget is very broken at the moment, and that's mainly because of its long duration and very short cooldown. I think halving its duration is pretty fair. X-ray Glasses. I would increase its duration from 10 seconds to 20 seconds. And also, I would just increase its cooldown slightly from 25 seconds to 30 seconds. The duration is too short, so increasing it will make it a little bit better and will also help the player use wall break weapons more effectively. Turtle Shell. I would decrease its damage buff from 50% to 30%. In my opinion, the damage buff is a little bit too high, since not only can you do damage to more players, you can also take less damage from players. And the final change which I will be making to gadgets is Combat Spinner. Damage going from 170 up to 220. Now that I've done all the changes I've wanted to do, it's time to move on to the next section. Armor and modules. Okay, now we're finally moving on to something different. If you somehow decide to go through all the changes I made to the weapons and the gadgets, you may realize that some of the changes I made may seem weird or unnecessary. But there's a reason why I made these changes with this level of precision. It's to do with armor and modules. Now, I think that the best armor in the game and wearing it basically makes you like a tank to newer players. And taking you out is practically impossible. and you having a higher level of modules, killing them will be a piece of cake for you, which really highlights the gap between newer players and experienced players.
And what makes this gap so much worse is the fact that obtaining these two things are not that easy. Obtaining good armor can usually be done if you have the right amount of gems at the right time, but modules is a different ball game entirely. The amount of bullshit clan grinding, especially after the nerf they did to silver mines and clan wars in general, is absolutely ridiculous. I've known people who've played this game for upwards of 7 years and still have not gotten X modules because they are so repetitive and time consuming to grind for. So, let's fix that problem. Now firstly, I'm going to be talking about all the armor changes. The nerfs here which I'll be making will be a lot more lenient than the one I'll be making to modules. And that is because getting X modules is way harder than getting a good armor set. Nerfing armor won't be as necessary, so I'll be nerfing it just a little bit less. In this armor section, I'll be saying the HP and the armor durability combined. So if you want to know how much durability an armor has on its own, just subtract 100 from the total. Now firstly, all 280 armors, including the veteran armor, will be reduced down to 260 HP. Next, all current 260 armors except developer armor, as that armor is pretty popular to have, will be reduced down to 240. With cash armor itself, I'm going to be reducing that one from 260 all the way down to 230. Because it has the ability to reduce backup damage, I think reducing it a bit more is fair. Now, all other armor, which is 240 or 220 or between them, will remain the same. The default armor in the game will stay at its total HP of 200, but I will allow there to be some basic generation of the armor and health, similar to what developer armor has, so that newer players can have a better chance against those who have better armors. And that's the last change I'll make to armor. Now I'm going to talk about modules. In this section, I'll only be talking about the effectiveness and the upgrading system of modules. I won't be talking about how you actually obtain them. I'll be talking about that in 2 different sections of the video. Here's a timestamp if you want to skip to that now. Now, here's the first change. X level mods will no longer give the same percentage buff in all categories, meaning that you will no longer get a 60% damage buff in every single category, and will rather be reduced and adjusted for each category. This may not make sense now, but let me continue. First, I'm going to start with the only category which will remain the same, and that will be snipers. In short, I do think that one-shot snipers should be possible as they have a very low fire rate and need a decent amount of aim to use, like I said earlier. So I think leaving the damage buff at 60 is reasonable. Besides, it only turns like a 2-shot weapon into a 1-shot weapon. It's not that big of a deal. For each category, I will state the minimum amount of damage that it would take for you to one-shot a player with these new reduced X module damage buffs. This is also under the assumption that you're using damage boosting wear, since that's very common to use amongst the pixel gun players. The following wear we'll be using for this. We're going to be using the Editor's Cape, which gives a 5% damage increase, the Halloween Mask, which gives a 7% damage increase, and the Burning Tiara, which gives a 5% damage increase. So for example, snipers will still need to do 146 base damage to one-shot 260 armor, which is now the new maximum armor. So let's do this for other categories now. Now with primaries, their max percentage will be reduced to 35%, with the base damage needing to be 172 to one shot. Now if you also have the gingerbread pet, which gives you a 5% damage increase, then the minimum damage to one shot will go down to 164, meaning that Dragoneer can still one shot. See guys, I told you, the changes here would be reasonable. Dragoneer will still be able to one shot at a very close range, while obviously not being broken at further ranges. Now moving up to the backup category. Now personally, I think they should have a 40% buff at max, as some of them do a lot of damage and some do small amount of damage with fast fire rates, especially after the balance changes I made. So I think a 40% damage buff is reasonable, requiring you to do 166 damage to one shot, 260 armor, meaning that backups that do more damage will typically two-shot a player, while some that have effects such as bleeding or burning might one-shot a player, like Sharp Puck. Now melees. They're pretty broken when you have X modules on them, especially in a knife party. But apart from that, they really aren't used much outside of that game mode. So their max percentage will be 50%, with X modules being 50%, and melee would need to do 155 damage to one shot. Specials. Now, specials are a fairly interesting category,
as apart from maybe a couple cat spam specials, they don't become crazily broken when you use X modules, meaning that their max percentage will also be just 50%. This should keep weapons which are stronger still good, and those that are weaker can still be made into decent weapons when used. And finally, heavies. As some of you may have anticipated, I'm going to be nerfing this category the most, with X modules going from 60% damage buff all the way down to 30%, meaning that heavy will need to do 179 damage to one shot. With this nerf in place, it means that most heavies will be 2-shotting, or maybe even 3-shotting a player, which I think is very balanced, as because a heavy is going to naturally have area damage, meaning that it's easier to hit with, and that killing players is a lot easier with this category than compared to others. So I think making sure it doesn't one-shot is fair here. Just ignore the dragon's breath. Now that I've talked about the max percentages that these weapons will be doing at level 10, we're going to be moving on to the leveling and upgrading section of the video, along with their effectiveness. As previously stated, modules are pretty dumb because the gap it creates between newer players and older players is pretty big, and with the goal in mind in reducing that gap, there's something else I would do to the system. I'm going to make it a lot easier to progress all the way up from level 1 to level X. So to do that, I will need to change the amount of parts to level up each time, along with the coin costs. I'll also list out the percentages of each level in comparison to level X. Here is a picture on screen to show you. And to explain it, the first column is the level of the module, the second column is the amount of parts it would take to upgrade to the next level, the third column is the cost it would take to upgrade from level A to level B, the fourth and final column is the effectiveness versus 10. So for example, level 4 takes 50 parts to level up to,
And 60 coins to upgrade to.
and does 30% of the damage that a level X module will do. Now, like I said, I'll explain how to get modules later, and spoiler, the new system will be a lot more generous than our current one. But for reference here, the current system requires over 2,300 parts and over 7,000 coins for one level X module,
Which is fucking ridiculous.
but with the new system that I've invented, it will only take 1,100 parts and 1,275 coins. Wow. That's like half the parts and the fifth of the coins. Hopefully, with this new progression, it will close the gap between new players and experienced players, and progressing to the max won't be nearly as annoying.
And with that, let's move on to the next section. Wear.
Now, most wear in the game is unused, and that is with good reason. It's because most options are just not as viable as the current meta. And while this isn't a huge issue as most of the wear stated here can be bought for cheap at any time, I think it would be cool to see more variety. So these are all the changes I would make to wear. First, let's talk about hats.
Evil brain.
Allow for a 10% damage sniper increase overall and increase the headshot damage from before.
Mushroom hat. I would give it a speed boost and allow for you to ignore a headshot to negate all the damage if used. This would be very useful in sniper forts. Cowboy hat. I would make sure to add the extra damage ability for primary and backups. This change kind of makes sense because, you know, it's a cowboy hat and I feel like a cowboy would like use these. Oh yes, and I would also increase the ammo regeneration speed. Bandit bandage. What bandage? Add the ability to not be harmed from self-damage. This may sound unappealing to those who like to EWO a lot, but spoiler alert, I'm gonna be throwing that mechanic out the window as well, so you might as well be using this anyways. Now, moving on to the masks.
Cyber Santa mask. I would add armor regeneration to the wear as well.
Turkey mask. I would increase this HP generation by around 50%. This would make it so it could be a competitor to Cyber Santa masks, since they are both holiday items, with one offering faster but only HP regeneration, while Cyber Santa mask offers both HP and armor regeneration, but at a slower pace. Stormtrooper mask. Add much quicker reloading time for all weapons, and not just primaries, being around 50% faster. The Hitman mask. I would apply additional damage to all weapons, being 3%, with backups having better cartridges and reloading times. Dr. Plague mask. This thing is kind of more cosmetic, but I will still add an effect where you'd be immune to all negative status effects like poison and burning. Anime glasses. Once again, these are more cosmetic, but if anything, giving them better zoom when using scope would be pretty nice, but would only be useful in niche scenarios. Veteran's mask. I would increase the damage buff from 5% to 8%. This is because it's a fairly rare mask,
So the damage buff shouldn't be as high as Halloween masks, so let's increase it.
and also because of this buff, now one-shotting should be easier. I'll list out the damages real quick. Heavy mask. Increase heavy damage by 12.5%. Again, this is another cosmetic item and it's pretty rare as well, so giving a damage buff should make it worthwhile to wear.
Also might help me against those who are mad at me for nerfing heavies in the first place. Moving on to capes, this section is pretty short as I think most capes in the game are fine how they are. The only one which I'm going to be changing here is the Stormtrooper cape, with the damage increase being higher and reloading time being much quicker. And finally, boots. The ultimate defense boots. I would reduce self-explosion damage by 50%. You know, because you're protecting your feet from the explosions. And also, I would give increased rocket jump. Sniper boots. I would increase sniper damage by 10%. Seriously, why are these called sniper boots but don't affect snipers at all? Hitman boots. I would increase backup movement speed more and also increase their headshot damage. We are almost done with the meta section entirely. Last thing I want to say is that things like the burning tiara will now be available in the armory again. However, to keep it fair, I would make sure that items like this would be unlocked on later levels. So for example, the tiara would be unlocked at like level 45. We are now completely done with the meta section, and now it is finally time to move on to the next section known as game progression. Game progression. Now that I've talked about balancing the game, I now think it's time to talk about the game progression itself. You know, the progression from going from a level 1 player to being a level 65 pro. So, here's my take on the current game progression. It's a little bit of a mess. Now, one thing which I do like about our current system is that you are only limited to a certain amount of weapons. And while I do think this list should be a little bit larger, for the most part, it's a pretty good system. So the only change here is that I'm going to be giving you more weapon options for you to buy. Now, I'm going to be talking about something which is far more important for game progression and should get everyone and their mums excited about it.
Yo, mama's so fat! She's on both sides of the fence.
You know when you have a shiny weapon that is like level 32 and you're like level 65, and because of the difference between your level and your weapon's level, now the weapon is kind of more shit than usual. You know that system?
Yeah, that shit's going straight out the window.
Seriously, the amount of gems and coins you need to spend just to keep your weapons at your level is absolutely insane. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't really make sense to basically punish the player for leveling up by making all their weapons more dog shit. So bye bye to that system. Now, the rarity tiering system. Firstly, I would move down a lot of weapons down a tier or two, as it doesn't make sense for over 80% of the weapons to already be called mythical tier. And I can't lie, 80% of them are dog shit, so I don't know why they're called mythical in the first place. So I think moving them down a tier will make the mythical tier look much more appealing, and also make those weapons with moving down a tier more accessible, as they will now be cheaper with coupons. Now, I won't list every single weapon I would move down a tier, I'll list just some random ones to give you an idea. Nuclear rifle, cookie minigun, healing cop, the poisonous vine, invader, neutron pulsator, dual anger, the spruce pistol, peppermint guardians, triple musket, lamp revolver, the ritual revolvers, dual cryo pistols, the piercer, rebel, cops club, blue substance sink, the spear of war, med surgery module, alien bouncer, electric vortex, cyber laser, pencil spear, masterly trumpet, evil Rubik's cube, eye of the storm, outlaw catcher, repressor, frosty railgun, laser carbine, fatal meter, and Eva, and last but not least, the Freon. Another change I would also make is that when upgrading a weapon a tier, I would reduce the amount of gems needed to be spent. So now, upgrading from Legendary to Mythical would go from being 900 gems down to 500, which I think is pretty good. And upgrading an Epic to Legendary goes from being 300 down to 250. And then the rest of the prices will remain the same, as I don't think they're too expensive. Now, the weapons which I've said before would move down a tier would still have their normal base damages. That means that when they are nerfed to Legendary, if they are brought back up to their original tier, they would perform better than said otherwise. Now, this is kind of a big change here, but I would also add a new tier, a new top tier, which for the sake of this video, I'm gonna call, Divine tier. I don't know, I could not come with a better name, I'm sorry. This Divine tier will have special properties, and I will talk about this Divine tier later. But for now, just know that the rarest weapons will have this tier. These weapons will be the Ultimatum, all veteran weapons, Winner's Laser Beam, all clan weapons silver and above, and super rare weapons like the Anime Sink, the Desert Fighter, the Social Uzi, the Iron Sword, the Anniversary weapons, Automatic Decorator, and Sharp Snowflake. These are just a few examples. Now, with this divine tier which I've created, I've made it so that you cannot upgrade it up from Mythical, similar to how common weapons work, which means that Mythical is still the max tier for most weapons. Now you're probably asking, why add a new tier? Simple, the gallery redeeming system. Now personally, I do think that the newer weapons should now be obtainable with coupons. It's stupid that weapons which are now 2 years old or 3 years old can still not be obtained with coupons. But I do understand why this happens. It's so that not too many players get super rare weapons. But I think it's just a little dumb, as 500 weapons are not considered to be rare. Additionally, most of them aren't even that powerful, and they don't make sense to just keep locked up forever. So, all weapons which aren't divine tier will now be unlockable in gallery. And the weapons that have question marks on them, you'll still be able to unlock them, but only during events, when they become visible. Now, those weapons which have divine tier will not be able to be unlocked in gallery. This change would allow for a much better diverse choice when choosing a weapon with your coupons, without letting super blade weapons or clan weapons to be obtainable outside their normal means. And plus, they can still be viewed in the gallery itself. Maybe they will have a golden gradient around their weapon to signal its rarity and status. And one more thing, when you get a divine tier weapon, the gallery will give you 50 gems, because why not? Now moving on to something different, another thing I would like to talk about with progression here is getting parts. Currently, it's shit. Now, I'll talk about how I would change the way you would get these parts later, from the lottery or roulette. But for now, I'm going to talk about the system itself. Firstly, I would reduce the amount of parts needed to craft a single weapon from 250 down to 100. It just makes more sense. Seriously, 250 is like a really random number for it to be a craftable weapon. Additionally, I would add a feature where if you manage to go over the part limit because, for example, the lottery gave you way too many parts, you'd be able to convert those parts into other weapon parts. Except, of course, the weapons which are divine tier. Now, obviously, the ratio of exchange would not be 1-to-1 parts. It would be more like 3-for-1 parts. So if I had 30 extra parts from one weapon, I would get 10 parts for another weapon. When that weapon is crafted, a menu would come up, prompting the player to choose what weapon the remaining parts can go to. Now, if a player doesn't have enough parts to exchange for at least one part, then they'll be given gem compensation instead. If they have one part, they get 5 gems. If they have 2 parts, they get 10 gems, etc. So if I had 62 parts over the limit, I would be given 20 parts for any weapon of my selection, and I would be given 10 gems for the remaining 2 parts. Which I think is a far more generous system than what we have now. Now there's also a store which does sell parts for weapons. The only change I would make to it is that the store will only sell parts for weapons that are over 50%. Everything else about it, from pricing to the time wait, is reasonable and would not really need adjusting here. And the final thing which I would change for parts is that I would remove the option to buy a weapon for £50.
Oh my god!
I mean, like, why is this a thing? It's so expensive! I mean, I understand the hustle, but ain't no one out there gonna be buying this skin for 20 bucks. Oh yeah, and the last important thing to note is that skin parts will be 10 parts max instead of being 100, just so they're easier to collect than the weapons. I would also allow these to be converted into weapon parts, as realistically, to get one weapon you would need 300 skin parts, which would be wild. Now, before we move on to the next section, I want to quickly talk about the progress road. In short, what the fuck are these rewards? Yeah, I'm sure we're all excited to get 10 coupons. Like seriously, how is this even like a good reward? You level up all the way up to level 65, and what? Ooh, you get a magic egg in the process. Like, who wants this? So, I'm gonna be increasing the rewards. Simple, yet a very one change. As for the veteran chest itself, it would stay exactly how it is now, but now it'll be a lot easier to get the veteran weapons, as now you need only 100 parts instead of 250. Now that I've talked about everything in the progression section, it's time to move on to the next section. Welcome back to our game show, Millie Guesses, the show where you can win 1 million gems. I am your host, Blackberry, and today we have 3 contestants. We have Dominic from Vietnam.
Yeah, eyes on the money. Yeah.
We have Billy from West London.
Yo, I just wanna some kids on Sandbox.
I'm sorry, what?
I want to buy so many weapons.
And our final contestant, Nabil Kareem Jabbar.
Hey guys, I think you're listening to me. I've been nonchalant one in this contest.
Brother, this guy's such a cornball.
Now, let's get to the questions. Dominic, you go first.
Alright. Battle Royale 400.
Alright! This sniper was very popular back in 2020 and does a lot of damage and also has a fiery skin.
Oh, this is easy. What is heavy sniper rifle?
That is correct! You win 400. Now, because you got the first question right, you could choose another box.
Alright then, I'm feeling confident, so I'm gonna choose miscellaneous 1000.
Okay. Oh wow! The daily double! Would you like to wager all or part of your money?
I'm feeling lucky, so all of it.
Alright then, here's a list. Fortnite, Minecraft, Call of Duty, One Punch Man, Chainsaw Man, Jujutsu Kaisen, Squid Game, My Little Pony, the US government, Pixel Gun World.
What media has Pixel Gun stolen from?
What? You didn't let me finish the question.
Well, yeah, I didn't really need you to.
Well, that is correct! Yo, I'm sorry for just randomly putting that there. The Pixel Pass section was going to be a lot longer originally, but then I cut out like a bunch of it because I realized that most of it wasn't really necessary. So hopefully this makes this section at least a little bit more reasonable to be called a section. The Battle Pass. Now, the Pixel Pass, there are some improvements which we can make here. Firstly, I would revert back to the old currency while removing the new one. It's really not needed. Besides, I like saying Battle Pass tickets over Pixel Pass tickets. Secondly, while I did say most weapons should be obtainable with coupons, Battle Pass weapons during any given season should not be redeemable, but are still visible in the gallery, and afterwards would become a question mark, and eventually would become redeemable once introduced into a new event, which I think is fair. Not really a change, but just something I wanted to put out there. Next, I would also change a bunch of the rewards in the Battle Pass. Like some of these are very low at the start, and while they do get better as you level up, I think it's fair to increase the amount of rewards you get in the Battle Pass, as maxing out the Battle Pass is no easy task. Also, we're going to be changing it so that every time you level up, you will get a reward no matter if you had the premium Battle Pass or not, similar to the old system, which I think is a very nice touch. And of course, with the premium Battle Pass, you will still get better rewards when leveling up. And finally, the last thing I would change here are the difficulties of the task. To be honest, the differences in difficulty between them is kind of silly, and should be heavily tweaked. Like, no one is going to spend 10 matches on one map to only get 300 battle points, while spending 250 coins will give you the same thing. Now, I do like the tasks which give you extra reward, like a lottery chest or like some extra gems on the side, so for the most part I would leave those alone. Simply put, I would adjust the difficulty and the reward of battle pass points you would get for each task, just to make it more fair and more rewardable for the player. We are now done with all the changes with the battle pass. It's now time to move on to clans. Clan Wars / clans. Starting off, the new Clan War system is pretty mid, so I'm saying that we go back to the old one we had in 2020 with some minor adjustments. Firstly, silver mines will give their old rewards of being 5,000 silver. Can't lie, when they nerfed this shit, I was so mad. Another adjustment I would do is make the map just a little bit smaller, only having around 60% of the tiles the original map had. I would increase the amount of reward you get from completing each tile and their respective tasks. I'll go into more detail about Clan Wars as a game mode later, but for now, let's talk about divisions. Right, so the division system has existed since 2019, and yet we still haven't got all the new divisions after all this time. So now that I own the game, and now that I have complete control over the game, I will just add them all in one single update. I would make sure that all the new weapons which would be added would be at least divine tier, and ensure that they don't break the game crazily. Now, I'll be talking about each division separately and speak about what happens at each rank at the end of each clan war. This section is a little boring, so feel free to skip ahead. Wooden Division, also known as the bottom division. If you get 6th and 5th place, you remain in the same league, with no reward. If you get 4th place, you stay in the same league and get 20 gems. If you get 3rd place, you get 40 gems and you move up a league. In 2nd place, you get 50 gems and you move up a league. If you're 1st place, you get 75 gems and you move up a league. Steel Division. If you get 6th place, you get no reward and you move down a league. If you get 5th place, you get 15 gems and you stay in the same league. If you get 4th place, you get 30 gems and you stay in the same league. If you get 3rd place, you get 50 gems and you move up a league. If you get 2nd place, you get 75 gems and you move up a league. If you get 1st place, you get 100 gems and you move up a league. Gold Division. If you're in 6th place, you get to move down. If you're in 5th place, you get 20 gems and you stay in the same league. If you get 4th place, you get 65 gems and you stay in the same league. If you get third place, you get 75 gems and you move up a league. If you get second place, you get 90 gems and you move up a league. If you get first place, you get 140 gems and you move up a league. Crystal Division. If you get 6th place, you move down a league. If you get 5th place, you move down a league. If you get 4th place, you get 75 gems and you stay in place. If you get 3rd place, you get 100 gems and you also get to stay in place. If you get 2nd place, you get 125 gems and you move up a league. If you get 1st place, you get 200 gems and you get to move up a league. Ruby Division. If you get 6th place, you move down a league. If you get 5th place, you move down a league. If you get 4th place, you get 125 gems and you stay in the same league. If you get 3rd place, you get 155 gems and you move up a league. If you get 2nd place, you get 200 gems and you move up a league. If you get 1st place, you get 300 gems and you move up a league. Adamant Division. If you get 6th place, you move down a league. If you get 5th place, you move down a league. If you get 4th place, you move down a league. If you get 3rd place, you get 200 gems and you stay in the same league. If you get 2nd place, you get 300 gems and you move up a league. If you get 1st place, you get 400 gems and you move up a league. Champion Division. If you get 6th place, you move down a league. If you get 5th place, you move down a league. If you get 4th place, you move down a league. If you get 3rd place, you get 250 gems and you stay in place. If you get 2nd place, you get 400 gems and you stay in place. If you get 1st place, you get 500 gems and you move up a league. And finally, the Godlike Division. If you get 6th place, you move down a league. If you get 5th place, you move down a league. If you get 4th place, you move down a league. If you get 3rd place, you move down a league, but you get 200 gems. If you get 2nd place, you move down a league, but you get 300 gems. If you get 1st, you stay in the same league and get 1000 gems. Now, the reason why I've made it so much harder to get to the top is because godlike weapons and such should not be so easy to obtain.
And frankly, these weapons should be a symbol of wealth as they take a lot of time to grind for. You will need to be in a very good clan to at least get the chance to obtain some of these weapons.
However, later on, I'll be telling you how getting these weapons might not sound as impossible as you may be thinking right now.
It's now time to talk about
the clan silver chest for modules and weapon parts and gadgets. Now, because the parts system for both modules and weapons has been changed, I'm going to be making reasonable adjustments here.
First off, we're going to be going back to the old system where there is a small, medium and large clan chest.
Firstly, I'll say that the small clan chest will only cost 400 silver, and will only give tank and fort stuff, plus a small amount of coins, between 5 and 15. Moving on to the next chest, the medium chest will cost 2000 silver,
and will give around 20 parts of a randomly selected module,
plus gadget parts being around 10, and around 25 to 45 coins. Additionally,
you can get 5 weapon parts for any clan weapon which is in the division that's below yours. So for example, if you are in the Ruby division, you would only get clan weapon parts from divisions which are crystal and below.
Now, this large clan chest will cost a hefty price of 10,000 silver and will give you 30 weapon parts on the same division plus the other divisions which are below yours, 100 modules at random and 15 to 25 gems. And finally, the super chest, which will now require 1000 points to open instead of 2000 points to open. To open this chest, you would obviously need to follow the same system of opening the other chest to give you points. The point system would be the following. A small clan chest will give 8 points, being that you will need to open 125 of these to open one 1000 chest. A medium chest will give you 40 points, meaning that you will need 25 of these to open one super chest. And finally, the large chest, which will give you 200 points, and you will need about 5 of these to open one super chest. This system means that you will need to spend a total of 50,000 silver to open one chest if you open all the same chests over and over again. Pretty cool, right? Now, talking about the rewards of the super chest, when opened, it will give you around 200 to 350 gems, and coins ranging from 700 to 1000. I know, quite a lot of coins. And modules, you'll be given around 200 parts of a random module. Also, the super chest can either give you an entire clan gadget
or give you 50 weapon parts for a clan weapon which is in the same division as yours,
and only weapon parts from the division that they are in. If they've already unlocked every single weapon in that division, then it will be the division below it, etc. It's also important to mention that if you get parts for clan weapons which you already have unlocked, you will receive gem compensation instead.
Which the higher the division you get weapon parts for, the larger the gem compensation will be.
Moving on to black market changes. Now, back in 2020, The black market was a really good way to get gems and battle pass tickets, but unfortunately, devs, being devs, decided to nerf the ability to buy things like that and kind of made the black market kind of shit. Enrique! So, with me now running this game and being the gracious savior that I am, I'll be reverting the change with small adjustments, being that 4,500 silver will give you 125 gems. It's a little bit more expensive than before, but I don't think anyone will really care. And the same thing will go for coins. 500 coins will now give you 125 gems. Another big change which I'll be making to the black market is that the level of black market will only now be individual to each player and will only be dependent on what clan rank you are. So if you are a newbie, you will only have access to the bottom tier of the black market, meaning that the higher your rank is, the better the black market level you'll have access to, and obviously that means better deals. I would also add clan weapon parts in the black market, assuming you are in that division, of course. Moving on to clan forts. Now, for the most part, I have no issues with the system. It's just that I would tweak it so that clan fort choices aren't as expensive and can also be more balanced. And while I won't go into very specific detail here, I would just say that I would ensure that each line defense in the fort along with the gate itself will have their upsides and downsides when using them, just so there's more options and variety to make them more appealing. Additionally, I will ensure that everything that is in the clan fort is not obtainable until you at least reach Ruby Division, meaning that the lower divisions will have to work with worse defenses until they level up. The gifting system. This is a simple change. Allow clan members to reward each other with chests and other gifts without having to spend any real money. Rather, let it just be in-game currency. Simple change, yet very wanted in the Pixel 3D community. Now, let's talk about game modes. This is something which I've never really agreed with in the first place.
But when the developers removed Siege from Clan Wars, it made me kinda sad that it had no real place in the game anymore, and was now just a side game mode that nobody played.
So, I think this game mode should be used to earn value for your clan,
Along with silver as an additional prize.
even being that you can play by yourself or with clan members, and matchmaking will be based on those who are in the same division as you, and someone's clan fort will be randomly selected in each match, unless the whole team is in the same clan. Now, I'm going to be adding a completely new game mode which is also used to help earn valor in a clan war. This game mode will be called the Clan Duel, with the winner earning valor. There will be 2v2s, 3v3s, and 4v4s. The matchmaking of the game mode will be determined by the division of the clan and the average rank of the players participating. So for example, if 3 clan members went into a 3v3 game, 2 of them had recruit rank, and 1 of them had warrior rank. The matchmaking system will try to find players similar to that level within their division.
This is assuming that Pixel 3D has a large enough player base for this to work in the first place. On top of that, the rewards will be the following.
This game mode will also give you silver and clan rank points, which will help you elevate your clan rank, alongside with the previously mentioned valor.
Now that I've talked about all the big changes which I would make to clans, here are all the smaller changes which I would make.
Firstly, I would add more freedom for clan logos by making them a higher resolution. Instead of them being like 16 by 16,
I would increase them to be 32 by 32 or even higher.
Another small change that I would make it easier to distinguish what division a clan is in based on their color gradient inside the game itself. It's pretty basic, but I think this would just help distinguish clans a lot better. And finally, the last change I would make here is something that a lot may disagree with, but I would make it so that only certain text and symbols can be used in a clan name. With that, I would also make it so that clan names are exclusive to each clan, meaning that 2 clans can't have the same name, unless that clan has not been used for more than a year. This is so that people don't try and obviously take every single clan name in the entire game.
With all of Pixel 3D's major clans already having their names locked in.
This is so people can't impersonate them. Good change, I would say. Now, we've covered all of the big sections of this video. It's now time to move into smaller sections, which will still have fun and exciting changes. Currencies. Simply put, we have too fucking many. These are the ones which I would remove. Event tickets.
Items can be bought with coins and gems. We don't need event tickets.
Pixel Pass tickets. Again, there's no need for these.
The main currency will be Battle Pass tickets.
While these 2 are the ones I would remove without question,
there would also be changes which I would make to other currencies.
For example, I would allow for there to be a conversion of gems into coins. So 1 coin will give you 1 gem. Let's just say that there's a bar in the currency tab, and you click on it
and you can convert your gems into coins.
This is a pretty useful change if you need a quick stash of coins, but you cannot do the vice versa. So you can't convert 1 coin to 1 gem. Alright, it's time to move on to the next section. Hackers and the anti-cheat.
Now this section only focuses on what I would do with the issue.
Since I have no way to actually code any good anti-cheats, I have no idea how I'd be able to do it.
But if I could rework the anti-cheat system completely, I would simply just make it so that the anti-cheat actually bans hackers and not legit players.
As currently, our current anti-cheat is complete dog shit. I would also make it so if you're caught cheating in any sort of way, you will get a 30-day ban at first.
And if you're caught being a repeat offender, you'll get IP banned. I'll have to go to the extremes if I want to stop hackers in Pixel Gun 3D, even though I am modded myself.
Now, with the anti-cheat system being kind of shit,
The developers are trying to stop hackers in different ways,
they're doing it based on a report system.
which does work, but could use some improvements.
For example, make it so that you can now see someone's ID inside a match by clicking on their name. And when you click on their name, it comes up with a bunch of information on that window, including the ability to report that player directly to the developer team, aka me.
I would also make it so if a player leaves mid-game, you can still see their profile in the previous matches tab,
It's so annoying when you go up against a hacker and they just leave last second and you can't report them.
because you can't see them in the previous matches tab.
Maybe put disconnected or something.
And with that, it's time to move on to the next section.
Matchmaking and crossplay, plus the game rewards and game mode reworks. Now, the fact that mobile and PC have the same lobbies isn't really the game's fault directly. Rather, it's a forced solution as a consequence for all the shit that the developers have done throughout the years. Since lobbies are already empty, there's no other choice but to put PC and mobile players together. Now, in our ideal universe, Pixel Gun would have a healthy amount of players. So because of that, I would allow there an option to be able to disable and enable crossplay, with it being by default off. This would go for PC and mobile. This only applies to those who are not in squads.
Those who are in squads who have players which are on different platforms will be forced into a mixed match.
This is going to make a lot of players happy. Next, I would also just rework the matchmaking system entirely. Firstly, matchmaking will be based on levels as before, with some adjustments. Now, those who are on level 1 and level 5 will be in the same match.
Those from level 6 to level 10 will be in the same match. Those from level 11 to level 20 will be in the same match. Level 21 to level 30 will be in the same match. Level 31 to 40 will be in the same match. Level 41 to level 50 will be in the same match. Level 51 to level 64 will be in the same match.
And then level 65 will have their own matches. This is a much fairer system as before. Level 32 players can be in a matchup with level 65 players, which of course is just really dumb. So this system should be a lot better here. If you're in a squad, the matchmaking will be based on the squad's highest level player.
Just so people don't try and do exploits and stuff.
Also, the issue of skill difference shouldn't be nearly as apparent here, as the weapon's base damage will now be the same across every single level, meaning that a level 21 player should not be at a disadvantage against a 65 player. Only modules and armor will now make a difference here, which of course have been changed.
Which ended up making the gap a lot smaller between professional players and noob players.
Moving on to the next bit. Secondly, this is a pretty big change, but I would add ranked matches and separate them from casual matches. Ranked matches will have a point system, which will be based on the amount of matches you win or lose. So, if a player has 1000 points in ranked, they will be matched with people who have a similar score of around 1000. If they lose, they will lose points, and if they win, they will go up points. Of course, the more they fall down, the easier the games will become, and the higher that they climb, the harder the games will become.
Ranked divisions will follow a similar path to clan divisions.
So for example, we would have Champion 3 or Crystal 2.
The list would go from bronze to champions, and while there would not be any godlike matches, there would be a replacement called pro matches. Casual games will still have matchmaking based on levels and the clan rank that the player has, so that players with higher clan ranks and levels will still have harder games.
But ranked games will be based on the level of the player and the amount of points they have in the ranked section. I'm going to now list the maximum reward you can receive from each game without any sort of XP boost or gem booster. I will list the amount of points needed to be in each division as well, and to move up. So, a casual game, you will get 3 coins and 1 gem max, with 0 points needed to participate in a casual game. Bronze 1 will give you a maximum of 4 coins and 1 gem per game, and your points will be between 0 and 100. Bronze 2, 5 coins and 1 gem per game. You will need between 100 points and 250 points. Bronze 3 will give you 6 coins and 1 gem per game, with the points being between 250 and 400. Silver 1 will give you 8 coins and 2 gems max per game, and the points will be between 450 and 750. Silver 2 will be 9 coins and 2 gems, requiring to be between 750 and 1050 points. Silver 3 will give you 10 coins and 2 gems per game, with the points being in between 1050 and 1400. Gold 1 will give you 10 coins and 3 gems max per game, with the points being between 1400 and 1800 points. Gold 2 giving you a maximum of 11 coins and 3 gems per game, with the amount of points needed being between 1800 and 2200. Gold 3 will give you a maximum of 12 coins and 3 gems per game, with the amount of points being between 2200 and 2500. Crystal 1 will give you a maximum of 15 coins and 5 gems, with the amount of points being between 2500 and 3000. Crystal 2 will give you 17 coins and 5 gems, with the amount of points being between 3000 and 3500. Crystal 3 will give you 19 coins and 5 gems, with the points being between 3500 and 4000. Ruby 1 will give you 20 coins and 7 gems max per game, with the amount of points needed being between 4000 and 4750. Ruby 2 will give you 22 coins and 7 gems, with the amount of points being between 7450 and 5500. Ruby 3 will give you 24 coins and 7 gems, with the points being between 5500 and 6250. Adamant 1 will give you 26 coins and 10 gems max per game, with the points needed being between 2250 and 7000. Adamant 2 will give you 30 coins and 10 gems, with the amount of points being between 7000 and 8000. Adamant 3 will give you 34 coins and 10 gems, with the points required being between 8000 and 9000. Champion 1 will give you 40 coins and 14 gems max per match, with the amount of points needed being between 9000 and 11000. Champion 2 will give you 42 coins and 14 gems max per match, with the amount of points needed being between 11,000 and 13,000. And finally, Champion 3, which will give you 44 coins and 14 gems per match, with the amount of points being between 13,000 and 15,000. And finally, the Pro League, giving you 50 coins and 18 gems, with the amount of points needed being above 15,000 and above. Also, I would add a little leaderboard for the top 100 players in the world with the most ranked points, just so it's extra cool to see who's at the top of the world. Now, some of these rewards may sound absurd, but keep in mind this is the max reward that you will get, and it doesn't mean that you'll get the same amount in every single game. Now, the amount of keys you will get will be increased, but will remain the same across all ranked matches. So, for casual games, you'll be given 5 keys, and for ranked games, you will be given 10. This may sound a little bit unreasonable, but I will explain why this is the case later. For now, this applies for every single game mode, apart from Battle Royale, where if you win one game, you will get 20 keys for ranked and 10 keys for casual. Now, I'll also list the amount of max points you can get from one match. Teamfight, 25 points. Deathmatch, 50 points. Duel, 20 points. Team Strike, 25 points. Flag Capture, 25 points. Single Battle Royale, 50 points. Team Battle Royale, 25 points. Now, I'm also going to be saying the amount of points you will lose per game. And every league you will go up, the maximum amount of points you can lose per game will increase by 5%. This is so it's way easier to fall down the leagues if the games become too hard for the player. It also keeps lesser skilled players from climbing up so easily. Now, team fight will start at 5 points you can lose max per game, with the maximum being 9.5. Deathmatch, you can lose 35 points at bronze, and maximum will be 66.5 points. Duels, you can lose 10 points at bronze and 18 at the max league. Team Strike, 5 points, and at max you can lose 9.5. The same thing applies for Flag Capture. And for single Battle Royale, you can lose 2 points and will remain the same across all leagues. This also applies for Team Battle Royale. I left Battle Royale the same across all leagues, as winning a Battle Royale game isn't that easy, and you're much more likely to lose a game. With this new system in place, it is way better than anything we had before, as now coins and gems will be much easier to earn. This helps with one of the major issues in Pixel Gun 3D, which is that obtaining of currencies can be hard outside of ads. This is very apparent in the Pixel Gun PC edition. Also, keep in mind that these are only the maximum rewards you get. The average reward will probably be a decent amount lower. This applies for the points that you can gain and lose in each match. Since these are the maximum numbers, the average amount of points you may gain or lose per match, particularly in Deathmatch itself, will be a lot lower. Now, the game mode mechanics themselves are mostly fine,
But there are some things which I would change here.
One huge change in particular I would change is for the team fight and the deathmatch game mode. And that is, if a player easy ways out themselves, not only will there be a 50 points penalty, but the team or the individual player themselves will lose 1 kill, and that will be displayed at the end of the game and won't count towards the total kill count. So for example, a team may score 50 kills and have -3 for the amount of times people have ELO'd. This is to discourage players from ELOing, as in my opinion it is one of the worst mechanics in the game at the moment. And to make it more fair, if a teammate continuously ELOs in a single game to make their own team lose out of spite, the game will detect this and instantly kick them from the game, and their kills and ELOs won't be counted towards the final score, which I think is fair. For game modes like flag capture, this is not very necessary, as the goal is to not necessarily kill each other, it's to collect points and flags. This newer penalty system already exists in duels, but to make it even better, if a player is on 0 kills and then self-destructs, they will become a -1 on the scoreboard. This is so players just can't abuse ELOing in any way at the start of matches. And speaking of duels, well, they suck. The prices for the chests are now just ridiculously high, and the reason they've done this is because they don't want hackers to give out free chests to people. It is another forced solution for the consequences of this game. And the consequences of this is that it's now way too expensive to place a bet on a chest, and it's just not worth the risk for anybody. So, with this ideal in mind, in the ideal Pixel Gun 3D universe where hackers do not exist, these are the prices I've reduced all the chests to. The novice chest will cost only 5 gems.
The fighter chest will be decreased to 40 gems.
The winner chest will cost 150 gems, and the super chest will cost a lot less, being 450 gems. Now, I know the super chest may seem a little too cheap for some of you, but don't worry, I plan to change how the super chest works in the lottery section of this video. Spoiler alert, it's actually better than it was before. And finally, one thing I would change here is that if 2 people in a duel draw in both points and kills, then neither will get the chest and neither will lose their gems. Currently it's set up so if 2 players are in a duel and they both drew, they both lose their gems and no one gets the chest. I think this is just kind of dumb, to be honest. So another adjustment to another game mode which I would make would be the Battle Royale game mode. First, in single games on the larger map, I would decrease the number of players from 100 to 50. Team matches will only stay at 100. Now for team matches, I would allow there to be duos, trios, and 4-person team games. And finally, I would balance out the weapons in the chest, just so people don't get broken stuff immediately off the bat. I mean seriously, it's so annoying when someone gets a rocket launcher and you just get instantly killed. Now some of you are probably thinking, why have I not mentioned raids? What about free play? And most importantly, what about the mini games? That is because I don't consider them to be ranked kind of games. Rather, they will only be considered casual based. Raids are a completely different thing on their own, as they're not player versus player, it's player versus environment. So being competitive in these game modes is kind of pointless. You're actually working together with other people to beat monsters, not fight each other. Now you're probably thinking, what am I going to do with raids then? Well, I'm going to give them an old purpose. Now you see, back in 2019, when raids were first added, they were the only way to get modules back then. But when the new clan system was added, this was completely scrapped.
And now raids don't really have a reason to be played or grind out for.
Now obviously, like before, depending on the difficulty of the raid, it will give you different rewards.
We won't have the old system where you needed shards as a currency to get modules chests, as I think we don't need another currency in this game, so rather I'm going to allow the rewards to be given directly.
The following rewards will be based on 1 raid for each difficulty. The easy raid will give you 10 coins, 5 gems, and 25 module parts at random. Medium will give you 15 coins, 7 gems, and 50 parts of modules at random.
Hard difficulty will give you 20 coins, 10 gems, and 100 random module parts.
Now some of you are probably thinking this is too much, but since raids are longer game mode, being like 45 minutes unless you can somehow speedrun it, I think the increased rewards here is fine. And sure, it's less than the max reward on a pro ranked match, but this is a reward given to all participants. And besides, you're not here primarily for the coins and gems, you're here for the sweet module parts. And having this system will make it a great alternative than to rely on having a good clan to get silver to unlock chests. You would need to play at least 11 games to make 1 module X module on hard, which is still a decent amount of games. And considering the fact that you have 42 different types of modules, it will take you a total of 462 games to fully max out modules, which compared to how it is now, it is a field dream.
This system would allow for players who do not have X modules to get them far quicker,
and help bridge the gap between
those who are newer and those who are older in progression. And sure, if you wanted to, you can probably max out every single module in like 1 week. Overall, I want raids to be the main way to get modules, with clan rewards and other rewards being a secondary option, just so that raids have more of a purpose in Pixel Gun 3D. Now, for the free play game mode, I think this game mode is more to hang out and relax than rather than to play competitively. So, to further align with this ideal in mind, I would add just a lot more features like more cars, more types of helicopters, maybe even these cool tech robots that can fight each other. Maybe add more places to interact with, like restaurants or barbershops. Basically turning the game mode into more of a roleplay based one. Maybe I'll also add police as well, you know, to make it more like GTA. I don't know, I just think that'd be cool. The mini games. Now, mini games aren't supposed to be competitive, rather they're just for fun. So they shouldn't give you a lot of rewards. However, I think they should still just give a little bit when playing each game mode. So the reward for playing these game modes will be 3 coins and 1 key per game. Except Sandbox. Which will only give you 3 coins, because come on, Sandbox, really? Earning keys? Nah. And speaking of Sandbox, yeah, I'm banning this freaky shit. It does not need to go on for any longer. Now, while I did say minigames should not help you earn a lot of coins, there is one game mode where I would allow you to try and earn more coins, and that's the arena. Now, the arena used to actually be like this, where you can earn a lot of coins in one time, and I can't lie, I actually miss the system. So let's replace it with my newer system. For round 1 to 5, you will only get 1 coin. From round 5 to 10, you get 3 coins. From round 10 to 15, 5 coins. Round 15 to 30, 7 coins. Round 30 to 50, 9 coins. And anything above 50, you will get 10 coins per round. This will make it a much better way to get coins in the arena, and will be a decent way to spend your time if you want to do some long-term grinding. Especially since you only have to fight monsters and not other players. And finally, the last change which I'll talk about in this section is something I would do for all game modes. Invincibility. Bruh. It's just too long. I think it should be shortened by at least half. I really hate the fact that when someone has invincibility, they can just kill you straight off the bat when they spawn in. It's really annoying because you can shoot like at least 3 or 4 shots before they actually are hittable, and they can just kill you very easily. I think it should just be halved. It's just way too long. It's time to move on to the next section. The tournament system. Yeah, I could not give a shit about them. Now, apart from hackers dominating the leaderboard issue, for the most part, they're fine. And while the matchmaking could be improved upon, I don't think tournaments are really that important, and aren't really a huge part of what makes this game special in the first place. And ranked game modes have kind of taken their place, so yep, I'm just gonna remove that into the system entirely. But wait, some dumbass might be asking right now, how could you get things like Winner's Laser Beam? Well, simple. You will now be able to unlock the Winner's Laser Beam when you hit the top league, including other items when you hit certain leagues. I would just put them across the league so it actually makes it worth ranking up. Not only do you get more rewards per match, but you also get rare and exclusive items. How crazy. Time to move on to the next section. In-app purchases. Now, I'll just make everything cheaper. Like I said earlier, are we seriously charging 50 pounds for one equipment? Like, who the fuck's gonna buy that shit, man? I don't think so. So, everything's just gonna be cheaper. That's it. Also, this is something which I think would make a lot of people happy. Add a confirmation button. Seriously, the amount of fucking times I accidentally bought something and I didn't mean to is so dumb. Just like add a simple "Are you sure?" button before you buy something. It would single-handedly save thousands of wasted coins and gems, and would completely remove the issue of accidentally just buying something. It's such a simple yet effective fix. The seasonal event, the lottery, and the roulette. Now, let's talk about the free-to-play event, which you get every single update. In my opinion, it's pretty good and doesn't really need any changes. Some reward adjustments could be made, but for the most part, it's great. The lottery. Now, the lottery system is fine. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Now, the first thing I would change off the bat is that keys which you have collected from that lottery, all those keys would no longer turn into coins by the end of the lottery. Seriously, why is this a thing? It's just super annoying when you grind for a lot of keys and you're just short of a chest, and then the event ends and you just wasted all your time and you just get coins as compensation. It's just pixel gun rage bait, to be honest. Secondly, another change I would make to the lottery is that if you win a chest in duels or get a chest in the battle pass, for example, you don't have to immediately open that chest. You can even save it for later and carry it on to the next lottery if you wanted. This kind of already exists in the game, but you have to do this very specific exploit to get it to work. So I'm just making it an actual feature instead of people just exploiting it. And finally, you know how I said the lottery system is fine? Well, I changed my mind. It's shit. And you know what? I can take this system and bring it from, oh, why did I get a skin after opening a super chest to, oh, the lottery is such a fun thing to grind. And do you want to know something about this system? It was actually in the game at some point.
Mate, what just happened? Oh well, I'll just continue then.
In June of 2020, during COVID lockdowns, I know, well, a long time ago, the developers dropped a very infamous update for its time, known as the 18.0 update, which added the new best armor, a completely reworked matchmaking system, which was still kind of shit, but like, let's move on, and the most important thing for our video, a completely reworked lottery system. Now, the way the lottery would work in this update is that you would get keys from playing a selected amount of game modes every so often, and then you would be allowed to open the novice chest. To get the fighter chest, you had to get keys, which you would get from winning games in every single category, and you can only get them once per a certain amount of time. If you opened the fighter chest, you would also be given points to the super chest. And within the super chest, if you opened it after you opened enough fighter chest and novice chest, you would get crazy super good items, like the new best armor in the game, or a completely new weapon, which is from the two sets which were added in that update. Now, what made the system so good is that you can only grind for the novice chest, but if you grinded enough, not only would you be able to get a novice chest, but then you would also get the fighter chest and the super chest, without having to just select them from the amount of keys you have. You get all three of them as part of the progress in the lottery, which I think is an absolutely amazing system. Now, the reason why the system is ultimately not in the game today is because it had some flaws. One was the game would not find you a lobby automatically. Instead, you would have to queue up and wait for 10 players to join the game. And while this isn't bad for a game like Pixel Gun 3D, it really limits the freedom you have while playing, and also just slows you down quickly going into a match. Secondly, you only had a limited amount of keys which you get per day, which means that if you wanted to like unlock a really rare weapon in like 4 hours of playtime, that would need to be spread over like the first like 3 or 4 days, because the game would only reward you for like the first 30 minutes, and I'm not even kidding, like it was pretty short. So yeah, after a ton of complaints about these main issues, in the next major update, everything was completely reverted to how it was before. Even the UI was changed. And looking back, this was a pretty big mistake on Pixel Gun's part. Yes, this system had flaws, and yes, did they receive a lot of backlash for it? They could have stuck with this system and made it perfect, instead of going back to the old one. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Let's bring back the 18.0 system with a couple of adjustments.
What the fuck? Okay, whatever.
Firstly, let there be 4 chests, just like our current lottery system. Novice, Fighter, Winner, and Super. With the Super chest being the only one which you can collect with points. Now, you only get keys to open the Novice chest, just like the 18.0 update, and you would get so every couple of matches. Let's just say you would need to get 20 keys for one Novice chest, so 2 ranked matches per chest. So, each Novice chest you open, you'll be given 1 key for the Fighter chest, of which you need 5 to open the Fighter chest. Then in that chest, you will get 1 key for the Winner chest, of which you need 5 to open the Winner chest. Now, like I said, for the Super chest, you will only need points to open, which will be set at 1000, and the other 3 chests will give you points towards the Super chest. Now, the amount of points you'll be given from each chest is the following. A Novice chest will give you 4 points, a Fighter chest will give you 30 points, and a Winner chest will give you a mighty 250 points.
If you wanted to get 1000 points on your own without having to win a duel for a chest or getting a battle pass chest,
then you will need to open exactly 50 Novice chests for 10 Fighter chests for 2 Winner chests. And that all added together would equal 1 Super chest. And the amazing thing about this system is that you would only need to grind for the 50 Novice chests. You don't have to grind keys directly for the Fighter chest, as you unlock the Novice chest, it will reward you parts for the Fighter chest and the Winner chest. This makes the system feel much more rewarding and is so much easier to grind compared to our old system, as you are practically guaranteed a Super chest along with much more rewards compared to our current system. It would only take 10 games to get 1 Fighter chest, 50 games to get 1 Winner chest, and 100 games to get 1 Super chest. And that may sound like a lot to some of you, but trust me,
this journey won't be as long as you think it is. And because the system feels much more rewarding and satisfying to do, the amount of time which will pass by will probably be a lot greater, meaning that you probably wouldn't even notice the amount of time you spend if you grinded for the lottery.
Now, let's talk about the rewards of each chest.
In short,
They suck. Like, imagine just grinding for like 6 or 7 hours just to get a skin from a chest. Like, bruh. So, I'm going to be changing those rewards. And to keep it from being too easy, you would only get one type of reward instead of all types like it was in the original 18.0 update. So for example,
if you opened a novice chest in the
traditional update, it would give you coins, gems, and weapon parts. But for our system, you would only get one type of reward, which I think is fair considering how much easier it is to grind. Now, the novice chest can give you skins and other rare cosmetics, and will give you 2 to 10 coins or 1 to 5 gems.
or it can give you 1 to 3 parts from the lottery weapons.
Moving on to the fighter chest, that can give you either 8 to 20 coins, 4 to 10 gems, or 3 to 5 parts.
This chest will have very rare cosmetics such as cars, lobby cosmetics, trails, etc. This chest will have no skins.
And then there's the winner chest. In that chest, you can get between 100 and 300 coins, or between 50 and 150 gems, and 35 to 50 parts for a weapon. There will be no cosmetics or skins of any type, trust me. I'm sure loads of you would love to see this in the actual game. And finally, the mighty super chest. This chest can give you a guaranteed weapon or an armor set when you open it.
And if every single weapon in that chest has already been obtained by the player,
the reward will be switched out for 500 gems per open. Now, like I said before, this system is much more rewarding and fair compared to our older system. It no longer feels like a waste. Like, I hate it when you can only spend 4 hours grinding and grinding and grinding for a super chest, and then they put like the most random thing in there that doesn't even help you, like a lobby item. Seriously, the amount of times, I've spent hours and hours and hours grinding to get a super chest, and I only got like something cosmetic is so annoying. With this new system, even if I left skins and cosmetics in the chest, it doesn't feel like you completely wasted your time, as you still have progress towards the other chests. So let's just say I theoretically had one winner chest and I opened the skin. It wouldn't be the end of the world, as I can simply just grind a bunch of novice chests back up to that winner chest. So I would get rewards even if I don't get the ultimate reward. Now, the reason why I made it so that everyone would get the same amount of keys per match,
regardless of what league they are in,
is so that higher leagues don't get an extreme advantage, as it doesn't seem fair for them to get the lottery items much quicker than everyone else. So here, it will remain equal ground. It's also important to note that these are general rewards and doesn't mean that they'll be like this all the time. Maybe from time to time, I could throw something like poison darts into the winner's chest,
or the ultimatum into the super chest.
And the final change which I would make for the lottery is that I would clearly display the percentages for each item in every chest, with the super chest having an equal chance for every single item. This is already in the game, but these numbers are fake, like they have been proven to be fake many times, so I'll just adjust these numbers to be actually real. Moving on to the next kind of event, the roulette event. Yeah, this new system is a little too expensive and just nowhere near as fun or tactical as the old one, so I'm just gonna bring back the old one. And to be honest, the system wasn't rigged or unfair at all, so I'm just going to leave it how it is with no additional changes, apart from 2. Of course, because the maximum amount of parts is now 100 and not 250, I would need to adjust the amount of parts accordingly to the ratio of 250 to 100. So I don't know, if you got like 50 parts, you would now only get 20 parts, which is still the same percentage anyways. There's also one change which I would make to one of the roulettes. It's kind of the one where you choose a random box. I would just remove the bad rewards from that one. It's really annoying when you like spend like 100 gems on a
box and you got like an XP booster or something. Yeah, so I would just remove rewards like that.
And also finally, I'll be halving the price of the refresh cost. I think 50 gems is just a little too expensive. So now it's going to be 25. We're now going to move on to the next section of the video. Quality of life changes, or smaller changes. We are now heading towards the end of this very long video, where towards the end, I will give my final prediction and thoughts of how my version of the game would realistically run. But before that, I will list all the smaller changes, which are usually quality of life features, which I thought were too small or not very significant to give their own sections. Also, I'm sitting in the fireplace because I thought it would be a nice change of pace. Firstly, map rotations. Now this is a system I actually quite like and would leave alone for the most part for casual and ranked games, as the map should realistically change continually throughout the year to keep the game fresh. But I will add the option to download any map that's ever existed in Pixelgun 3D and allow you to play them in private at any time of the year you want, so you don't have to wait a year or more just to play your favorite map. Maybe I'll tuck them behind like a download button, just have like a little download button at the top right of the private tab, so that you can basically play any map at any time of the year you like. The chat system and censoring. Now, I don't really have an issue with Pixelgun trying to censor bad words, but the way they try to prevent you from saying these words is frankly quite weak. Like, all you have to do is add like this weird symbol at the end of, like, I don't know, the word shit, for example, and you will be able to see the text in the game. So I would just improve upon this and make sure this doesn't happen. Also, the developers recently added some words which are weirdly censored. Like, for some reason, you can't say dumb anymore. Like, I really don't understand what they're going to achieve with this. Like, you can say things like Adolf, but saying mods is considered a federal crime by the developers and is now censored. Like, how dumb is that? So, safe to say, I would change the system and ban words that actually have some weight in banning them. That's right, idiots. I can't believe this word is also now censored. Like, why? Another thing which I would do for the chat system is to add more emojis. Like, I really think the game could benefit with having more ways to express yourself. Maybe add them to the existing packs or just give them their own pack. Maybe add like a Halloween, Easter, or like Valentine's pack. I don't know. I think it should be pretty cool. And the final change which I would make to the chat system is that I would allow it so that you're able to mute people inside games if you find them really annoying. And also, I would make it so that you were able to see previous chats that were said before you joined the game, or if you left by accident and came back. Like, it's really annoying when you're like in the middle of a conversation, you just disconnect, and now you just like completely lost that conversation. Lobby items, plus the reintroduction of the lucky chest. Now, I'm going to be adding the lucky chest back. The big one with the weapon, not the ones with just the weapon part. We're going to be adding the OG one back, where you can actually get rare weapons from the chest. This would give just weapons like golden friends, it would just be more popular, and bringing it back to the lobby just feels so right. Speaking of the lobby itself, I just wish we had more items that we can use to customize our bases. That's kind of been pushed aside since the seasonal backgrounds have been introduced. So it would be cool to bring these back, and maybe even give small player buffs, like the pirate flag giving extra headshot damage. Nothing too broken though. Custom games. Now, I've already said before that you will now be able to use any map at any given time by downloading them from the More Maps tab. However, I think we can make more improvements to custom games. One improvement that would make everybody happy would be allowing us to name our lobbies again. This was removed for questionable lobby names. God damn it, Sandbox. Why couldn't you just keep it in your damn pixel pants? To ensure we don't get names like that again, we would just put the new chat censor system into the names, so that if someone tries to name their game something inappropriate, the game would come up with a prompt saying, hey, you can't name your game that, please try another one. Simple yet effective fix. I would still allow there to be public and private games, so that you can make games without having to set a password. I would also allow there to be more power to the one who creates their game privately, such as the ability to kick a player from a match or mute them from the chat. Don't worry, if a player leaves their own lobby, the crown will fall to the player who's been in the game the longest. For public games though, this will not exist, so we don't need to worry about people abusing the system. And finally, I would add more options to ban things like certain attributes, like shotguns or wall breaks for example, so that in a 500 damage game, people don't spam shotguns and ruin the fun for everyone. Essentially just being more detailed on what you can and cannot use in the game. Optimization and graphical settings. Now, this game needs some serious optimization, as over the years, the game has become far too demanding to run on the phone, and increasingly becomes worse as time continuously passes. To give you an example of how bad the performance is, back in 2020, I used to play on a fairly old Samsung phone, even for its time, known as the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge. This is a fucking goat phone, by the way. Anyways, if we use Anticheat Bench to measure its performance, it would have a score of around 300,000 total, which might not mean a lot to you, but stick with me here. Consider the fact that this phone was able to easily run Pixel Gun 3D and was a phone from 2016. Getting 60 FPS was smooth and had absolutely no problems. Now in 2025, I currently own the Samsung Galaxy S23, which has the Anticheat Bench score of 1.5 million, meaning that the S23 is 5 times faster than the S7 Edge, which is absolutely insane. Now, do you think that it runs Pixel Gun well in 2025? No. Let's just say that I now have performance issues when I really shouldn't. I mean, I can still get a solid 60 FPS most of the time, but in a laggier game, I usually get 30 to 40 FPS, and when it gets super laggy, it can get as low as 10. Update. With the recent patch on October 17th, 2025, the game has become so much more fucking laggy that it takes 10 seconds to open the Armory. Like seriously, playing a 1v1 is now impossible, as I randomly just have lag stutters and don't stand a chance against anybody if I lag. It's seriously so bad. I don't know how they managed to get even worse in just a single patch. And yeah, because of this, now I have to film all my footage on PC, which I'm just not good at, so my footage is going to look slightly worse for this video. Anyway, sorry about that, I just had to mention that. It's so bad. I really hope they fix this, but let's be honest, they won't, so... Now, if you compare the performance on the S7 Edge in 2020 and the S23 in 2025, it really highlights how terribly optimized this game is now. Like, how in the last 5 years did the game go from running super well on a 2016 phone to not being able to run on a 2023 phone? Like, it's just so dumb. Now, to ultimately solve this issue, I would simply optimize the game a lot more than it is right now. I mean, these graphics really don't need to be this demanding. They don't look that good. Next, I would also add graphical settings. Options such as low, medium, and high for things such as lighting, reflection, and even things like depth animations. So, if a player is on a lower end device, they will not be as handicapped as they can just lower the graphical settings for greater performance. I mean, you can kind of already do this on PC since you can disable things such as bloom. So adding graphical settings to mobile just wouldn't be something completely out of the question. User interface changes. Now, apart from adding a confirmation button, I would add more smaller UI changes. Firstly, redo the entire friends interface to look something similar to Discord in a way, and looking for friends with a search button instead of endlessly having to scroll through your friends list. Next, I would make sure chats have a pressable link if you wanted to send one, with of course there being a censorship if there's anything bad. And the final change I would make here is that you will now be able to edit and delete chat messages, which I think is just a nice quality of life feature for Pixel Gun. And the rest of the UI changes will mainly have to do with the event calendar, which while I think is a nice way to see when events will begin, I don't like that they're the only way to access the events. So, kind of like how you were able to see the roulette system and the lottery at the top right next to the coins and gems, I would make it so that things such as the roulette, the lottery, and the free play event would also be introduced back there, just so it's easier to access on the main menu. Ooh, and this is another change which I think would be very good. I would add another confirmation button, but this one won't be for in-app purchases, rather it'll be one for if you want to leave the game or not. This is so people can't run away as fast as soon as you kill you. I see you fuckers, you guys are the worst. And the final UI change which I would make is that I would make sure there would be a search bar for if you want to look for weapons or maps. Seriously, it's just so annoying when you're trying to find a weapon and you just can't find it because you have to scroll endlessly in one category. Controls and keybinds. Now this change mainly applies to mobile. I would allow there to be greater customization for the controls, like moving the buttons anywhere you want and making them any size you want. This would mean that players would have a lot more options and would allow them to tailor them to each of their own devices and their respective screen sizes. Trader's Van. Now the system was great. I love the idea that every couple of days you can get a random set of weapons for a good price. Well, I said was. Now, prices are too expensive for a weapon, which unless it's super rare should not be over 600 gems. So let's revert down to the old prices. And let's say that each mythical weapon from a trader's van will now cost 350 gems, just like before, unless it's a super rare weapon like the ultimatum. Then we can justify it charging a higher price. And the final change is that if a weapon were to come with a skin, I would allow the player to either buy the weapon and the skin, or just do one of them. I don't know why you would only buy a skin, but hey, you do you. Battle Royale cosmetics. Yep, these are mostly fine. The only thing I have a problem with is that I don't know why you're able to update things like gliders and cars. So in fact, I'm just going to be removing that system, and now every car and glider will be, by default, have their current max stats. Like, seriously, I don't know why this would exist in the first place. And another change is I would also make the battle shovel in the melee category. I would allow it to be more customizable, and have every possible battle shovel as a skin to be used in normal game modes. I think this would just be a really nice addition. Renting. Now this is an old system which got removed a while ago, but for newer players I would allow them to try a weapon for at least 2 to 4 matches, and then afterwards you'd be able to buy that weapon for a discounted price. This would be so fun seeing the game again, and I don't know why the developers decided to remove it in the first place. The weapons being rented won't be like super rare, but they would be weapons which would be good for a player to get if they were starting. The Task Hub. Now, the Task Hub is a really nice way to get things like coins and gems. Like, I really like the one where you can get 5 chests in a Battle Royale game, you get 35 coins. That's one task I would get on top of. But the other tasks are kind of bad. So in short, I would tweak them to be much more rewarding. Additionally, I would also reduce the Task Hub cooldown to 6 hours, and tasks which a player already has progress on would not be removed after those 6 hours and would only expire after 2 days. Ads! Remove them. I mean, except the ones which give you a reward. And speaking of those, I would also reduce the cooldown between each of the ads to 0 seconds, meaning that you can just watch them all back to back now. And once you finish all the ads, I'll reduce the cooldown again from 8 hours instead of 12. I mean, I do make more money this way. Voice chat.
Can you say that to her?
Lady, you want to swap partners so he can have her and then I can have you?
Yeah, sure.
Seriously, adding some sort of voice chat for the game would be such a good idea, but of course would have some limitations. Because most players are younger than the game itself, I would need to make sure that everyone is at least above the age of 13 to use voice chat. Probably gonna have to have some sort of verification system to even hear the voice chat. I would probably still need some serious moderation, as there's some serious pedophiles on this game. Like, damn, y'all need to relax. Custom skins. Now, I already know that we can make our own custom skins using the skin editor, but tell me why we still can't import or export skins just like we can in Minecraft. Like, this is such a very simplistic yet heavily wanted feature inside Pixelgun. The current method is such an unbelievable amount of fuss and such a waste of time, so I think it would just be better if it was just supported natively and would just make everyone happy. We have now completely gone through every single change which I've made in this video. I will now be addressing my final thoughts. Wait, actually, there was one thing I forgot. The DLC skins, along with the RGB set. I'm gonna make sure you can't buy them anymore, and you can also get them on mobile. Now it's time to move on to my final thoughts. Predictions and my final thoughts. Now, I would think this game would become a lot more fun and fair to play. No longer will newer players have such a big disadvantage when going against more experienced players, and having the ability to download any map at any time and having more options in clans, ranked matches, etc. The game would become a lot more enjoyable and a lot more competitive. With all these factors in mind, I think as time would go by, the amount of players would start to increase again. And to further increase the player count, I would also try to run small ad campaigns, maybe a few sponsorships here and there with a couple of YouTubers, try and promote the game.
Come on, just give it a try. Alright, maybe just a little.
This video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends.
I'll position the game as a top-line block shooter, having a variety of maps and weapons, along with a lot of unique game mechanics, such as 3-cat spam. Other things that I would do is that I would stop adding weapons for a while. I would try to be as communicative as with them as much as I can, and make sure to take in feedback, as I'm sure some things in this video will bring new and unexpected problems. I would also try and host more events with the community, and try to remain with constant communication with content creators and build good rapport. Now, with all the changes I said in this video, I wouldn't roll them out all right away. I would do them over a period of time so that players can adapt to them better. So let's say that theoretically, I took charge of this game at the start of January 1st, 2026. This would be the rough timeline. In the first week, I would make sure to do the complete balance changes with all the weapons, wear, gadgets, and modules. I would get this quickly out the way because the meta is probably the main thing that's causing this game to be really bad at the moment. In February, that would be our first major update, where I would do all the changes to the lottery and roulette. And I would make sure to add all the optimization updates along with the new graphical settings I said earlier. The second update will take place in May, and will have the clan and module obtaining changes, plus the ad and user interface changes. The third update will take place in July, and this is when I'll be adding the ranked matches and removing tournaments altogether, and all the other game mode changes. Plus, I'll be adding the downloadable maps and the private game changes here as well. In September, I would add all the other changes I made in this video. After this time period, I would probably add new weapons again, along with new maps, but they won't be the same. I'll probably add a lot less weapons a year compared to how they add them now, and I would probably add more weapon skins for weapons which could really use some love. No remaking weapons though. Other things which I would do is that I would also try to expand to more platforms such as the Switch 2 or the PlayStation 5, with the goal of making the game as accessible to everyone as possible. This video is now complete. If you managed to sit through all 2 hours of this video, then I applaud you. I respect the grind. I spent a long time on this video, and now some of you are probably expecting me to ask you to like and subscribe. There is no way in hell am I going to be a text-only subscriber. So rather, I'm going to ask you to like and comment, just so we can spread the video to as much of the community as we can. And to clarify, I did not make this video for clout all, which is why this video is made on a completely fresh new channel. I made this video to show the Pixelgun community what this game could be, and I know that this video is only just a fantasy, and that this would never happen to the actual game. The real Pixelgun will continue to rot away and completely die in the next year or two. And my final message to all of you, find a new shooter.
Like, I don't know, play Call of Duty, Valorant, I don't know. Just find a new shooter for goodness sake. And GDev.